Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, would you please turn off your cell phones or use the etiquette feature? Today's hearing is being audio and video recorded. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustments for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustments deals with applications for minor variances, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to create new lots. I'm going to be vetting the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which ones will be put on hold. So I'm going to call the items on the agenda. I'm going to ask for the applicant, and I'm going to ask for anybody in opposition or an interest. If there are people in opposition, then that matter will be held. We'll proceed with the non-contested matters. We may ask questions once the applicant makes submissions, or if anybody in opposition makes submissions. Everybody will be allowed 5 minutes, subject to applications in which we have extensive opposition, and there are a lot of people who want to be heard. We're going to ask you to appoint a spokesperson, and if there's we're going to try and restrict the number of spokespeople, and if we can't restrict it down to about 3, we're then going to cut the time that the persons can use. So when you're called, come forward, bring your decision request card and hand it in to the committee staff, which is seated on my right. Go to the podium, clearly state your name and your address. If you read from a written submission, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you're done. You're going to have 5 minutes, as I said, and then those in opposition or in support will then be allowed to express their views. Again, as I said, we're going to have, if there's a lot of people in opposition, you're going to have to appoint a spokesperson. We're not going to hear from everybody, and we don't want a repetition of the issues. So we have 45 applications today, so we're going to try and make sure that everybody sticks to their time limits. All appeals from the committee are dealt with by the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or TLAB. If you want to find out more information about TLAB, go to their website or go to the Committee of Adjustments website. Appeal instructions are included at the bottom of every decision. To receive a copy of our decision, you must fill out the decision request card and hand it in, as I said, to staff. Do we have a motion for confirmation of last meeting's minutes?
Seconded.
All in favor? Have your approval. Any declarations of interest on the morning list?
Mr. Chairman, I have a declaration of interest in number 4 and number 5. I sit on an advisory committee to the TTC that dealt with this project.
Okay. You'll be excused. Any files to close, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are there any applicants who wish to withdraw their applications at this time? Okay, I'm now going to vet the agenda. Number 1, 23 Glen Stewart Crescent, applicant. Opposition? Okay, we'll proceed with that one. Number 2, 65 A Hillside Drive, applicant. Yes, any opposition?
Yep.
Yes, all right, we're going to hold that one. You can meet outside and try and resolve or narrow the issues. Number 3, 126 Sears Street. Any opposition to 126 Sears Street? Okay, we will be proceeding. Number 4 and number 5, 1719 Dewhurst Boulevard and 30 Donlands Avenue. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition on either of those matters? We will be proceeding. Number 6, 24 Badgerow Avenue. Applicant? Nobody here? Any opposition on this one? No? Okay, well, we'll come back to that. Hold it for now. Number 7, 30 Curzon Street. Applicant? Any opposition? Okay. Number 8, 34 Ellerbeck Street. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition to 34 Ellerbeck?
Yes.
All right. All right, you might, we're going to hold that one. You might want to meet outside, see if we can resolve your difficulties. Number 9, 107 A Ferrier Avenue. Applicant?
Yep.
Okay. Any pardon? Yeah. Yeah. Perhaps if, when I call your, the matter that you're on, would you please stand? I'm having trouble seeing people. All right, any opposition to 107A Ferrier? No? Okay. Number 10, 198 Euclid Avenue. Applicant? Thank you. Any opposition? Okay. Number 11, 55 Thyra Avenue. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition? Okay. Number 12, 253 Cedarvale Avenue. Yes. Any opposition? All right. We're going to hold that one. You might meet outside and see if you can resolve your difficulties. Number 13, 484, 486 Cosburn Avenue. Yes. Any opposition?
Yes.
Are you opposed? You're the applicant.
So who's that?
Are you an applicant too? Okay. All right.
Just not sitting together.
Number 14, 7 Glen Eden Crescent. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition to Glen Eden Crescent? No? Okay. Number 15, 514 Jarvis Street.
Over here.
All right. Any opposition to Jarvis Street?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to hold that one. Number 16, 166 Swanwick Avenue. Yes. Any opposition to Swanwick? No? Okay. Number 17, 28 Woodfield Road. Any opposition to Woodfield Road? Okay. Number 18, 20 Salisbury Avenue. Applicant? Yes. Any opposition? Okay, we're going to hold that one. Number 19, 34R King Edward Avenue. Applicant? Any opposition to King Edward Avenue? Yes. Okay, we'll hold that one too.
Okay. Two, three. So we're holding 6 items.
Person Badgerow came in yet? Person wasn't here?
Oh, yeah. Okay,
That's
24.
right.
Number 6, I'm calling number 6 again, 24 Badgerow Avenue. Anybody here on that?
Okay. What about the age? Okay.
Okay. So we're going to number 1, 23 Glen Stewart Crescent. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a ground floor deck that wraps around the rear and south side of the dwelling and a rear second-story deck walkout over the existing ground floor roof. And before us, we have material submitted by the applicant. Yes, sir.
My name is Will Hudson of Hudson Architecture, the agent and architect for the owner.
Do you have any questions?
I have one question, Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
The only issue that I could see is potential privacy issues with the people immediately to the north. Have you had consultations with them, the next-door neighbors to the north? Has anyone raised concerns about the privacy of the, from the deck?
I think it would be a slightly odd orientation, but the 2 adjacent neighbors, I think, face east and west. So the neighbor to the east, they're both fine. My clients have spoken to both. They're okay.
That's all I needed to know.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty large lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah,
So it's a large deck.
It is.
It is. it's an unusual site. They have an over 20-foot drop from the back door to the bottom of the garden, even though it's a deep pie-shaped lot. But they need to, a sort of bylaw compliant deck just wouldn't make sense there for amenity space for them at the back of what's really the ground floor, even though it becomes the second floor at the back of the house. It's a walkout from the kitchen and rear living room, so.
So it's really not a deck, it's a patio.
I think that would be a fair description, that's right.
All right, any further questions?
No, Mr. Chairman,
All right,
if no
can
one
we have
has
a
any,
motion?
if no one has any questions, I'd like to move approval of the application. The only concern I had was, as a result of the drop in grade, whether there were any concerns with privacy from the neighbors, and I gather there isn't because of the consultation. I think this clearly meets the 4 tests and is desirable development. I'm happy to move approval.
I'm happy to second that motion.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2 is being held. We move to number 3, 126 Sears Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing detached dwelling by constructing a 2-car carport with a deck above. Before us in this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from the Planning Department, a staff report from Conservation Authority, and correspondence in opposition from 49 Lang Street. Your name, sir?
Good morning. I'm Eric Calhoun. I'm the agent for the owners of 126 Sears Street. I'd like to table a letter of support from 128 Sears. We just got this yesterday, so it's not made it onto the...
Thank
We've since received our conservation permit, so they have given us a permit to proceed with the project. They have no concerns with that. I think you've seen the planning report. They don't have any concerns related to the project. We were at...
Can I clarify that? That was my only question. We don't have a report from planning. What we do have is a memo from planning that indicates that they don't have any concerns provided that soft landscaping features shown which appear to be permeable pavers and planters are used. I may recommend a condition to this effect. We don't have a report that has that. Have you been given to believe there is a report with that?
No, I'm sorry. I was referencing this email.
Okay.
So
Would
that's-
you have any difficulty, although the drawing that I think the planner is referring to is, pardon me for 1 second, I believe is your drawing ID 21. It doesn't indicate permeable pavers, but it does indicate the use of landscaping for screening and so forth. Do you have any difficulty if approval is granted, it would be subject to building substantially in accordance with that drawing?
Not at all.
Okay.
Any further questions? Do you have a
Would you like me
motion?
to address the concerns from 49 Lang Street?
you. That would be helpful.
I brought a couple of photos just to show the existing condition.
Could we,
This is the view of Sears Street. 126 is on the right, 49 Lang is on the left. You can see from just above
they're adjacent properties?
their adjacent properties, you can see that the height of ours, in fact, I'll show you another. This one might actually be more helpful. You can see the doors, the French doors at 126 Sears, those are going to be leading onto the deck. So from there, there'll be one step down to the surface of the deck on top of the carport. So our carport and deck level is going to be lower than the existing deck at 49 Lang Street. They have a solid privacy screen around their deck, so they won't actually be able to see this construction from their property. You can also see their backyard it's not, I guess, heavily landscaped in a deliberate way. It's used more as a parking pad, sort of an informal parking pad behind their house right now. We've gone to lengths to maintain those trees, so you can see the tall tree. We have an arborist report. We're making sure that there's no damage to that tree. And then the smaller trees behind it, which are less than 0.3 in diameter, so they're not protected, we've designed the deck so they can come through the deck. So landscaping is very much a part of what we're proposing to do. The whole, as you could see in the drawings, a very large part of the deck itself is going to be landscaped. It doesn't count as soft landscaping, of course, because it's up in the air. But basically what's a parking pad now is going to be created with green space on top. If you're looking at the numbers in the zoning notice, right now we're looking for 20% front yard landscaping. At the moment we have 22%. So we're looking for a very small change from 13.34 square meters to 11.87 square meters. Variance number 2, we're currently at 36.8%. We're looking for 32%. So we're looking for very small changes. And I think the letter from 49 Lang is a little, they're talking about what the requirements are versus what the proposal is versus, not really making reference to the existing. So I wanted to just put that in a little bit of context. The other variances relate to the existing. So the existing building is 0.28 from the lot line. So we're maintaining that. The existing is 0.4 from the rear lot line. So we're not looking for variances from what's existing. The only change is because we're putting a deck over a carport, it changes the way things are defined in the bylaw.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Calhoun. I think the neighbor receives a notice. It doesn't say what's existing. It says what the code requirement is. And sometimes people think that that's what the change is. And he starts quoting, this is 200% more. This is 400% more. So I'm satisfied, and that picture certainly helps. I don't think there's any adverse impact. So I'd be pleased to bring a motion of approval of the application subject to Mr. Nipfeld's suggestion about tying it to the, I think it was the front elevation?
No, it's drawing ID 2.1.
Okay.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 4 and number 5, Mr. Nipfeld is recusing himself. 1719 Dewhurst Boulevard and 30 Donlands Avenue. The purpose of this, the first application on Dewhurst is to demolish the existing 2 residential dwellings located at 1719 Dewhurst Boulevard and to construct 2 separate additions to the existing Donlands subway station for 2 new elevators, 1 at street level and 1 below grade from concourse to platform level, thus ensuring accessibility is increased for all patrons. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from engineering and traffic planning, staff reports from engineering and urban forestry, and correspondence in support from 9 Strathmore Boulevard. With respect to 30 Donlands Avenue, the purpose of the application is to demolish the 2 existing residential dwellings located at 1719 Dewhurst Boulevard and to construct 2 separate additions to the existing Donlands subway station for 2 new elevators, 1 at street level, 1 below grade from concourse to platform level, thus ensuring accessibility. And before us, we have material submitted by the applicant and a staff report from engineering and urban forestry. Your name, sir?
Good morning. My name is Sebastian Gomez, representing the TTC for these 2 cases.
Yes. Do you have any questions?
Glad to see this improves accessibility for the public to public transportation, so it's a very good purpose, good thing to be doing. There's some question about, so you're okay with you've seen the urban forestry has a condition?
Yes.
And as well, there's a condition from engineering and construction. Have you aware of that condition? Does that pose any problems for you?
No, not at all.
Sorry?
Not at all.
Not at all, okay. And was there some sort of an encroachment agreement required as well?
Yeah, so community planning and right-of-way management have given us support of the encroachment.
Okay, so we don't need that as a condition. Madam Secretary Treasurer, we don't need that as a condition. Okay. As I said, this is a something that's for the public good. I don't think there's any adverse impacts on anyone, and I believe it meets the 4 tests and is minor, so I would move approval of the application subject to the urban forestry condition and the engineering construction condition. On both items.
Yes, both. All right, I second the motion. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the one that they weren't here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Would you, oh, okay. Number 6, you're on number 6? Okay, well, let's just, is there any opposition to 24 Badgerow Avenue? Okay, we shall proceed. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition and a 3rd-story addition. We have before us material submitted by the applicant, a staff report from Transportation, 12 form letters in support, and correspondence of concern from 247 Boston Avenue.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Leo Mastandre. I'm the agent for the owner at 24 Badgerow, and I have a handout here I'd like to give you.
Thank you.
And in addition, we've got more support letters. So here's another 5 support letters, specifically the one to that we're attached to on the semi.
Okay, we have, just for the record, we now have form support letters from 26 Badgerow, 261 Boston Avenue, 17 Badgerow, 21 Badgerow, 23 Badgerow, 237 something. This one,
That was a verbal.
this one doesn't
Boston.
have. Yeah, this one doesn't have a signature or an address, so we won't count it. All right.
Yes, so in regards to our variances, we do have a few variances, but most of them are existing. Number 1, number 3 in the new bylaw are existing. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the old bylaw are existing. So essentially, we're only here for the GFA.
Yeah.
And if you look at my handout, you can see similar GFAs have been approved on Badgerow and on Boston, as well as I have photos in that package. If you'd like me to do a formal presentation, I can.
Just give us a moment to
I
look
see the
at
ones,
your...
the 2 you gave us on Badgerow, Mr. Mastrange, are across the street. Is there any difference with the lot configuration across the street?
No, the lots are very similar in nature.
Okay. I see that, okay. And can you just let us know what the current floor space index is?
99%.
Okay. So you're allowed 0.6, you're already way over, going to 1.3, which...
We're just adding a little bit to the back of the 3rd floor that's existing as well.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Nipfel, if you don't have any questions, I think I'm ready to make a motion. No questions?
I do. The comment you just made, I have reservations when one half of a semi is dealt with differently than the other, and I do appreciate that you've maintained part of the peak roof with the adjacent and adjoining semi. But you mentioned that basically the changes are all at the back, but that's not what these drawings tend to indicate. The
Well,
changes are also a dormer at the front, right, which is you've got a 3rd-story addition. Which
Yes.
actually, in effect, runs from the front to the back of the house, because the
Yeah,
dormer goes right to the front.
The 3rd floor in the front is existing. The neighbors have it as...
Dormer?
Not the dormer, but the actual front. So we had
So
exclusive...
would you, then to clarify, could you go to your drawing A6 and show me what that looks like now?
A6 looks, it's you know the peak at the front?
Can you put the drawing on and show me?
Sure. I have my drawings over there.
Here, use mine.
Currently, it exists up to the top there, so we're extending the slope of the angle. We spoke to the neighbors, they want to do the same thing, but they don't have the finances currently. So when we were designing our proposal, we included our neighbors so that in the future, they could do the same thing. So the top of that line,
It goes across.
yes.
Does this half of the house look like this? So you said the dorm was already there.
No, the dormer's going to be new. The roof is there. The third floor I meant is there.
Yeah, but the dormer is new.
We added the dormer for some light in the,
The third-story addition does in fact stand right to the front.
it's existing though in the front. We're just adding the dormer. Above that
was my
slope
point.
roof
Yeah,
is,
that's his
That
question.
was my point. Okay.
All right, so this
I got
is-
the answer.
The neighbor is 26?
the neighbor's .9.
No, the neighbor's address is 26 Badgerow.
26 Badgerow, yes.
So they've approved.
They've approved it, yes, because during our design, we were in the same conclusion that we didn't want the houses to look different. So that's why we just continued our slope. So that top of our slope is continuing of the front roof.
Your understanding is that the neighbors are going to, at some point in the future,
In the near future, yes.
fine, thank you.
Any further questions? Do we have a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion. I agree with Mr. Nipfel's comments. Well, in an ideal world, you like to see semis dealt with at the same time. Otherwise, it sort of looks like a bit of a sore thumb. But given that they've supported that, the reason they're not proceeding, we recognize people want to improve and increase the size of their homes and increase their value, but they're just not ready. And I'm satisfied it'll tie in nicely when they are prepared to do it. And your clients should not be fettered in their ability to increase their size of the home just because they're in the semi. So having said that, I would move approval of the application, and I don't believe there are any conditions.
Second? All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Number 7, 30 Curzon Street. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story detached house by constructing 2 secondary suites, a rear second-story addition, a third-story addition with a rear third-story balcony, and a rear basement walkout. Before us in this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, a staff report from urban forestry, and correspondence in opposition from 24 Curzon Street.
Hi, my name is Joachim. I'm the agent of the 30 Curzon. Here's the owner. Then the support letter from the neighbors, 32.
So we have here a letter of support from 32 Curzon Street. 32 is, next door neighbor.
Town is next.
Right, okay.
And the owner already talked to the 28, and then 28, but there is no. We didn't have chance to get a letter, but there is okay. But we got the opposition last night, actually, at 24 for the opposition letter. Then we didn't have chance to talk to the neighbor, but there's a 5 objection letter. The point is not really related to our construction because we are making on top of the existing foundation. So we are not touching any at the back side of the laneway or at the back rear yard. And then there's no parking issues, no tree cut actually.
Okay, yeah, the neighbor complains about parking. There's no parking variance here. There are 2 secondary suites. Where are they located in the residence? One in the basement and...
What basement is a secondary unit and then all the other unit. So we have really about 200 feet. The the length of the lot, so we have about 5 parking at the back, so,
Yeah, it's a very long lot.
yeah.
This goes through to the lane.
Mike, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
The homes, the majority of the homes on this side of the street are 2 stories. Homes on the other side of the street are 3 stories. Is that correct?
Not really. Can I show you on the map?
Sure.
This is our house actually.
Yeah.
And then this is our common house is all 3-story on this side.
Okay, I'm wrong.
And the other side, this house 24 has a complaining about the height issue, but we're trying to make the same height, but they're picked as it. And then the 3-story front house, they have the 3-story, the 3rd story, and then this one has 3rd floor.
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of third stories.
The front part has all.
Okay,
3rd
thank you.
floor.
And I assume what you're proposing is similar height. You're looking, you
Yeah.
need a height variance of 7.5 meters to 9.08, but that shows that there are other third stories who I assume the height
Yeah,
so offends the bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? We have a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, if there are no more questions, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 2. The area is rather mixed in character and design approach. I think this will fit in appropriately, and I think it clearly meets the 4 tests for variance approval.
I'll second Mr. Niffeld's motion.
All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, number 9.
Number 9, 107A Ferrier Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a 3rd-story addition, a rear 2-story addition, and rear 1st, 2nd, and 3rd-story decks. Before us in this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence from planning and a staff report from planning. Okay. We've just been handed support from, letters of support from 101 Ferrier Avenue, 105 Ferrier Avenue, 102 Ferrier Avenue, and 98 Ferrier Avenue.
Jay Smith, I'm the agent for 107A Ferrier Avenue.
Yes. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Smith, what's the current, Aside?
0.71. And we did work significantly with planning staff. That's why we have a double setback on the side elevation.
and you've seen the staff condition?
Yeah.
April 25th as a condition of approval.
Yes, we have. We worked with the planner to bring things into a point where she could support the application. Like I said, we've done the double setback as well as the privacy screens on the third floor deck to stop the overlook, as well as consultation with neighbors.
Chair, if there's no further questions, I'm prepared to make a motion of approval of the application. I believe it's minor, meets the 4 tests, subject to the planning staff recommendation, the condition of approval as set out in the memo dated April the 25th, basically tying the variances to the site plan and the rear elevation and the proposed side elevation as identified as being received by the committee on March the 15th, 2019.
So the screening is in your plans?
It is. It's labeled on the deck, and it's in the plans there.
Thank you. Mr. Nipfeld, second the motion? All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10, 198 Euclid Avenue. The purpose of this application is to convert the existing 2-car garage with laneway access located to the rear of the existing two-story detached dwelling into a four-story dwelling building with 2 parking spaces by constructing a two-story addition over the existing one-story garage, a 4-story stairwell addition along the east wall, and a rooftop deck. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning and right-of-way management, a staff report from planning, correspondence in support from 871 Dundas Street West, and opposition from 202 Euclid Avenue.
Morning. My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the applicants, who are also here behind me with the architect. We've reviewed the... Yes. Yes. Multi-generational housing is the plan. I don't think she'll be speaking later today, though. We've reviewed the staff report, and we're fine with the conditions that they're requesting. The shape and the scale of the building was the result of about a year of working with planning to make sure it was something that they were agreeable with, and we think it's an appropriate and creative way to provide some infill housing in an area that really needs it without creating either precedent or impacts.
So, Mr. Galbraith, just to clarify in my own mind.
Sure.
This would be subject to the laneway housing bylaw, save for the fact it's in mixed zoning?
Exactly. It's a really unique property. It's the only property in this mixed-use area that is commercially zoned but residentially developed with access to a lane in the back. 11 of the variances are required simply because of that unusual condition of zoning. It's also designated mixed use in the official plan.
So does it conform, would it conform with the laneway bylaw?
It would require variance for height under the laneway bylaw, but it meets the requirements for separation. It greatly exceeds the requirements for separation distance. The property has 1 meter clearway to access and is within 45 meters of the entrance of the lane. It is larger than it would be permitted under the laneway suites bylaw, but it is a commercial property, and there's no height variance, for example, required under the new bylaw, and there's no density variance.
Any further questions?
No. Mr. Chairman, if there are no further questions, first of all, I'd like to compliment Mr. Galbraith on this submission. This could have been a long discussion were it not for a very comprehensive submission.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It's my pleasure to move approval of the application subject to the planning conditions that we've discussed. I think that this clearly meets the test. It's not minor in nature, but it clearly is appropriate development for the area, and I'm pleased to move approval.
Seconder?
And they're clapping already. I'm happy to approve that as well. I think it's a very unique property, given its location, and it's up against commercial buildings, so I think it's a good infill project and very creative.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 11, 55 Thyra Avenue. Purpose of this application is to construct a detached garage at the rear of an existing one-story detached dwelling. Before us, we have materials submitted by the applicant, reports from engineering and transportation, and support from 24 Bryant Avenue.
Hi, my name is Joe Dome, agent for the applicant, 1101 Steeles Avenue West. So we'd like to legalize an existing garage that was built recently.
So the garage is already up?
Yes, so the garage has been built recently, so we would like to legalize it. And we got the reports from transportation and engineering. As far as transportation's concerns regarding the driveway, so we had extended discussions with them and talking about the width of the driveway, and so they said that it can't be wider than the garage. So we agreed to that. We would like to change that, but in our extended conversations with them, they discovered that they had been mistaken, that they assumed that it had been a double-car garage when in fact it's a single-car garage. And in that case, they would not like the driveway to be any wider than it currently is. So we would like to scale back further, just leave the driveway existing, not make it any wider in accordance with transportation's recommendations.
So does that mean that you're removing a variance?
So no variance is actually affected by this, but we would just like to reduce the proposed width of the driveway. As you can see, is much wider than the existing driveway, and so we would just like to keep the driveway as existing.
So it says you have to resubmit a site plan to indicate the removal of the excess driveway, and also deal
Yes.
with the utility pole conflict.
So the utility pole is only in conflict when the driveway is extended.
I see.
So the utility pole is not affected with the existing driveway.
So although the garage has been built, the driveway has already been, is already wider and has to be made,
No, so the driveway hasn't been altered from its original,
that was the original intention, but,
yeah.
Okay. So before we deal with the motion, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I believe we have to change the purpose to legalize and maintain a detached garage. Pardon?
I don't have a record of an order to comply, that's why we didn't know it was already constructed.
Yeah.
And if you want to change it, that's entirely up to you.
Who's going to make the motion? Somebody going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, so do you want the purpose changed to legalize and maintain, or do you want to leave it construct?
Well, and if it's going to create a problem, I'm going to move approval of the application, but perhaps with the purpose of the application changed to indicate that the garage is existing, so that the purpose would be to legalize and maintain an existing garage. My approval is also subject to the recommendations of the transportation services about the driveway, and to clarify, perhaps we should just say that the driveway is to be as existing, which is what you said.
and no wider than the
The
width of
existing.
the garage.
No.
No,
The
hasn't.
gentleman said the existing driveway is what this refers to, and the drawing indicates there's an existing driveway that's one driveway wide, and that there's a new driveway proposed. The new proposal will not take place. So just to clarify, in future, what we're looking at is the driveway at its existing width.
I just think as a suggestion, perhaps because we don't know, Mr. Dome is telling us, perhaps just to clarify that the driveway width shall be no wider than the width of the garage. So if it's.
Yeah, except the
If it already
driveway is
it has
actually
to
going to be
brought back.
less
If it
wide.
hasn't been, it won't be.
It's less than the width.
It's less?
of the garage.
So if you can see the line about halfway through the driveway, you can see that it's actually less than the garage. It's less wide.
This is the line. That's the driveway there.
That's right, yes. So that's the existing driveway.
Could you annotate a plan for us, and we'll refer to that plan then?
Sorry?
Could you annotate a plan for us, take a plan and show us the driveway, and we'll say that the driveway width is to be as shown on the
Sure.
plan by, who is it by? Okay,
Provided today.
the site plan A100 as revised at the meeting. And I'll give you my copy, and if you could annotate it, then we're referencing that in the decision, okay?
Is your motion complete?
Yes, it is.
All right, we have a seconder?
Yes.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir.
Thank you very much.
Number 13,
Yeah, thank you.
484, 486 Cosburn Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story mixed-use building by constructing a rear second-story addition and by converting one of the two residential units on the second floor into a child care use day nursery. And before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning and transportation, and 3 form letters in support.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Epis from Marilyn Epis Architect. I'm the applicant and the architect for the project.
Mr. Chairman, unless my colleague has questions, I think this is a very straightforward application, and I don't need a presentation. I'd like to move approval of the application. I think it clearly meets the test for variance and is a desirable development for the area.
I agree with Mr. Nipfel. There's only one parking variance, a deficiency of 2 spots, and a slight variance for the parking width, so there's really nothing here. So I'm happy to support that.
All right, all in favor? You have your approval, thank you. Number 14, 7 Glen Eden Crescent. How do we get away from all that noise? The purpose of this application is to construct a new 2-story detached dwelling with a rear first-story deck. The existing detached garage will be maintained. We have before us material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Planning and Conservation Authority, staff reports from Urban Forestry and Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, 11 form letters in support. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Paul Dowsett of Sustainable Architecture, the agents for the applicant. In addition to the 11 form letters that you have, I have 2 more here as well to bring them up. 13. And as you can see on the screen behind you, we have got support all surrounding the subject property, even across the ravine.
So here is a letter, we've been handed a letter of support from 2 Glen Eden and 5 Glenfield Crescent. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Side of the ravine.
Yeah, and both immediate neighbors on either side are in support as well.
Have any?
I have a question, and it's from correspondence between you and the planning department. You've indicated to Ryan in the planning department, based on my conversation with Stephanie at planning, the height was the main issue in question. If they're satisfied with these changes and we're ready to proceed, are those changes what we have before us? They're incorporated into the material we have here?
Correct. You can see on the screen now, the dotted line was the initial proposal, and what you have before you is the current proposal.
And that's what planning saw that they supported?
Correct. The lowered roof pitch, which is...
And that's reflected in the variances?
It is.
Right. Thank you.
Michael, you okay? Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application. I think it's fairly straightforward. I compliment the applicant for negotiating so effectively with planning. I think it clearly meets the test for variance and is appropriate development for the area.
Is there any conditions or TRCA or natural ravines are all okay, right? I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 16, 166 Swanwick Avenue. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing lawful non-conforming mixed-use building into a conforming single-family dwelling use and to legalize the rear 2-story addition. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence in support from 160 and 164 Swanwick, and 5 letters in support, form letters in support. Your name, please?
Good morning.
I'm Bernadette Warren, and I'm here with my husband, Greg Hurd. We're owners of 166 Swanwick Avenue.
Okay, what is the existing floor space index now?
The existing floor space is as it was when we purchased the building, took possession last August.
I assume the two-story addition's already been built, and it was built before you bought it?
Yes, that's correct.
So
It was
I guess
built
the
sometime
question
in
is,
the
do we
1960s.
know what the floor space index was before they built that? It's already built, so you may not have that information.
Yeah, sorry.
The second story of that addition existed when the building was built in the first place in 28. They infilled it in 1965.
Right.
And just basically closed in underneath an existing gabled addition, right?
So they closed it in inside?
Yeah, they basically framed in and moved the door.
So it couldn't be used?
No, it's off the kitchen, what was the old kitchen. I don't have a drawing.
Yeah. In any case, this is I guess, a property that at some point was the neighborhood corner store, and it's been converted to a,
Yep.
before you bought it, though, that was done.
That's
You're not
correct.
actually doing any construction at all.
We're not increasing the square footage in any way. It is our neighborhood corner store. We just want to renovate it to live in and better the neighborhood, and that we're going to increase the green space around the building and plant trees.
Okay, so before you bought it as it was already a corner store. It hasn't been used for residential.
It's always been mixed
It's a
use,
mix.
actually,
I see.
residential
Upstairs.
and commercial.
That's right.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Nuttall, you have any questions? Okay, I'm pleased to approve this application. Looks like you have neighborhood support, and it's, converting a neighborhood corner store, which sort of there's no need for anymore, into a residential property. So I'm pleased to support this.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to second the motion. I'd like to note or applaud the owners in a comment they made in their submission. They stated, "We want to keep the footprint of the building as we purchased it and thereby maintaining its exterior as it appeared for many years," which I think makes any involvement that you're having on this positive to the community, not an intrusion. So compliments on that.
Thank you.
And I'm seconding the motion.
But you're going to get people asking for quarts of milk.
That's right. We do every
Side
day.
business.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 17, 28 Woodfield Road. The purpose of this application is to construct a new three-story detached house with a front yard parking pad. And before us on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from right-of-way management, staff reports from Transportation Services, Urban Forestry, and Conservation Authority. We have opposition, 12 form letters in opposition. There's no opposition here today? No. All right, thank you. Your name, sir?
Good morning. My name is Mohammed Saror. I'm an agent of the owners at 28 Woodfield Road. I'd just like to add an additional letter of support from the neighbors directly to the south.
When you say additional, do we have any?
Yeah, these letters I'm looking at here are letters of no objection. Maybe they were but I think, in our report from staff and and we were told that these are 12 opposition letters, but I don't.
Sorry, they're letters of no objection.
That's correct. I'm just telling you, we were briefed this morning that these were
So I read
actually
it
letters
out.
of opposition.
I read it out wrong. I didn't make the
No,
mistake.
you didn't. It was in,
Ah, all right. So we have an additional letter of support from 26 Woodfield Road. Okay, your adjacent neighbor.
Yeah, so now we would have letters of no objection, letters of support from both neighbors directly to the north and south.
All right, thank you.
So, good morning. We are making this application for a minor variance to demolish an existing condemned house on the property and construct a new three-story single-family residential house for the family. So as you can see from the screen, This is the existing subject property at 28 Woodfield. It's in not a very good condition, to say the least. And so we believe the proposal will provide a welcome addition to the neighborhood and an upgrade, also in keeping within the existing neighborhood fabric.
Do you have any questions?
I have a question. I apologize ahead of time because the drawings I have are very faint.
Oh, no problem.
But am I correct that the terrace is on the back of the house?
The terrace is on the back of the house,
So
correct.
then one of your drawings is incorrectly noted. What you've noted as your front elevation is actually your rear elevation.
Correct.
It's creating all sorts of problems for me because I couldn't figure out where it was oriented. That being the case, you've got then a fairly substantial third floor deck that's facing behind. There's an issue potentially of privacy. Does that deck extend out beyond the properties on either side of you?
No, it doesn't, and the deck actually has it's only a 10-foot wide deck, so the last portion of the deck is actually just roof above. So So as you can see here from the drawing, this is a elevation.
Yeah.
The glass guard is the only extent of the actual deck. The rest of the deck is actually the roof of the second floor above.
My concern is, if you get an approval and we didn't tie it to any plans, there would be nothing to prevent you from making that deck the whole roof. If the deck extended on the whole roof, I think there's privacy issues. Overlook to the properties to either side, and definitely overlook to the properties behind you.
Okay.
So I'm inclined to think that if you received approval, it would need to be tied, or the size of the deck, third floor deck, would need to be tied to this drawing.
Okay.
Okay. That's drawing number,
What number is that drawing?
I think it's drawing A511.
A503, sorry.
What's A511? This is the terrace. A503. Okay, yeah, I see it there too, yeah. That one has.
Pardon? No, it's on the third floor. It's off of the third floor is shorter than the second floor, and then there's glass. Here, there's glass around here. This is not a problem now.
Yeah, precisely.
But this was the deck. The problem is here, here, and here. So I'm just anxious that we could tie it to this drawing too, that we tie the size of the deck to a drawing, either this one or the other, the elevation.
A503.
A503 is the one that he mentioned, this one, I think. No, no. Oh, here it is.
And I guess while we're doing that, we should probably clarify, as Mr. Nifo pointed out, that
this one.
Yeah.
that A50 was in fact the rear elevation and noted as the front, and the opposite, A502, is shown as the rear, which in fact is the front elevation.
Okay. Any further questions, or do we have a motion?
I don't have any questions. Do you, Mike?
No, I'm prepared to move approval of the application, subject to having it tied to the elevation, I guess, A503, to show the extent of the deck and the roof above the deck as being what is approved. And otherwise, I think, you have a number of variances, but you have no height variance, and the variances are rather small, 0.06 for floor space, less than just over half a meter for the depth. So I think you've been sensitive to really coming forward with minor variances in designing your new three-story house. Thank you.
This is forestry number 3.
And yes, forestry condition number 3.
I'd second the motion.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir.
Thank you.
Should we take a break before we do the contested?
Well, let's just see if...
We now have the contested ones.
Yeah. All right, we're going back to the contested ones. I just want to see, We're going to take a short break. I just want to see who's here and ready to proceed. Number 2, 65 A Hillside Drive, you're ready? All right, number 8, 34 Ellerbeck, you're ready? Okay, all right. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will come back and deal with number 2.
Come on, you
We are now back in session. We are now dealing with number 265 A Hillside Drive. Opposition, would you please come and sit on this, in this row here? So,
Thank you. You going to walk us through the revisions?
I am.
Okay.
okay, wait till I call, wait till I... All right. So 65A Hillside Drive, the purpose of the application is to convert integral parking and storage area on the ground floor of the existing legally non-conforming four-story apartment building into 5 dwelling units. Before us, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from transportation, correspondence in concern from 65 Hillside Drive, and correspondence opposition from 87 Don Valley Drive. Yes.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. My name is Janice Robinson of Goldberg Group, representing Starlight, the owner of the building. We don't have a settlement with the tenants that are here today, but I'm going to present the application first and then get to what their concerns are. This is a 4-story apartment building containing 71 rental units. It's a legal non-conforming use presently. It was built in 1954, acquired by Starlight in 2012. It's a well-maintained building now. Starlight has made many improvements to both the interior and the exterior since purchasing it. The proposal is to remove some storage rooms and 6 garages and replace them with 5 new rental units. 2 will be 2-bedroom units, and 3 will be 1-bedroom units, all on the ground floor. So the revised plans that you have before you is taking out or adding in accessible parking space. There is one variance, it's variance number 3.
Excuse me, could you just repeat what you said? I screwed up by knocking the microphone here, and I didn't
Oh, okay.
hear you.
So
Sorry.
the revised plans show an accessible parking space. So there is one variance on the notice. It's variance number 3 to bylaw 569-2013, and it's to a variance to have 0 accessible parking spaces. So now there will be 1.
So we delete that?
You don't need that, so that variance is
Okay,
deleted.
thank you.
So you can take that one out. So what that leaves us with, a variance for the number of parking spaces. 18 will be provided, whereas the total number required is 25. Currently, there's 14 spaces being rented out to tenants in the building. So there will be some additional surplus parking spaces to rent out to new tenants. There's many tenants in this building that don't own cars. The other variance is for an increase to the floor space index from 1.53, which is the existing FSI, to 1.61 times the area of the lot. There'll be no physical expansion to the building, it's just that the converted space is now being counted in the FSI calculation. So they did hold a tenant meeting, 8 tenants did attend, and what they found out was that one of the issues is, and I think it's the main issue of the tenants here today, is storage lockers. So presently, there's 20 lockers occupied in the building presently. Some of them are included in the lease and some are not included in the lease. And
just before, and I appreciate that storage area is the big issue. I just want to deal with the issue of indoor parking and outdoor parking. Is there, is the indoor parking a requirement that you're now doing away with?
it's only in that they were parking spaces. So there's no differentiation in the zoning of whether a space is indoor or outdoor. So the requirement is 25 with the new units, and what's being provided is 18. And all of the spaces will be outdoors. So Yeah,
So let's talk
18
about
including
this.
one accessible.
Let's talk about storage area. So you say some were included in the lease,
Some are,
some are not.
some are not. Some pay for them. And like I said, 20 are occupied, so there's... There's more than that, but 20 are occupied presently. So they are, with the new proposal, able to provide 6 at this time. So what would happen for the people who do have the storage lockers included in their lease, there would be a rent reduction for that.
So currently, every unit, there's 20 units now, you're adding 5 for a total of 25, right?
Well, there's 71 units now,
Oh, there's 71 units.
and 5 are being added.
I see, okay.
And
So
there's 20 occupied storage lockers.
how many unoccupied storage lockers? Because you have an excess of
There's an excess. I'm not sure what the number is. It might be
71 units.
10 or
and
15 or
75
20, but 20 lockers or what's,
So 14 will no longer have a storage locker.
that's, yes.
Can I clarify where they are? You have 2 plans, existing and proposed. The most substantial storage space is on one of the wings, and they're both now being absorbed into a 2-bedroom apartment. Is that correct? And the only storage space that is remaining is a long linear space off of a corridor on the main floor. Is that
We
correct?
just, the property manager is here,
Yeah.
and I think that's the room, but I'll ask, because where are the 6?
I can show you one here.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I've got this clear.
I have the area highlight.
Here, I can show you here what I'm talking about. This is storage now.
Yeah.
Can you put that back on for a second? This is storage. That's storage, storage, storage. Oh. That's what it says.
Show us.
You know what, I'll show you, I know exactly where they are.
Okay, on my drawing,
The one that you're pointing at?
the drawing that I have that's in the agenda shows that this is storage, this is, let me finish. This is storage, this is storage, and this is storage. The proposed redevelopment has this as a 2-bedroom apartment, and the only storage space is this little piece here. I just want to make sure I've got it right. The rest of it's parking. I just want to make sure that I'm right.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's what I'm getting confirmation on. So that's where we're at. I think that the vehicle variance is not really an issue because there will be spaces left over for new tenants. Transportation Services was presented with the numbers. They don't have a concern about it. It's a minor alteration, and it's a conversion of space and allows for more rental units, which this city needs. But there is the situation where there will be some tenants who would like to have lockers who will not have lockers.
And how many units will it be ultimately if this is approved?
76,
And there's only going to be 6 with lockers.
6 with lockers. So there's 20 now that have lockers.
Okay, so what is the tenant's position with respect to the lockers?
Well, the ones that are here, and the ones that are here want lockers. So
So how do you decide who's going to get a locker?
it will be up to, they will start with the ones who have it in their lease.
And you can't tell us how many there are in
And
their lease?
They, actually off the top, they don't have that number right now, how many have it in their lease.
Where I was going with my question was to maintain the existing locker space, which I don't think is unreasonable given the size of the building, you would lose from your proposal 1 dwelling unit.
One unit.
Thank you.
And potentially that, it might be a different unit, because there might be a bachelor unit that could be, yeah. Yep.
So to maintain 20 locker spaces, you lose one unit? Is that correct?
They would lose a unit.
So, but your proposal unilaterally does away with 14 locker spaces, some of which are in tenants' leases.
Right.
Which I would think would be a unilateral breach of the lease by the landlord.
Well, they would get a reduction.
Pardon?
They would get a reduction in their rent.
Well, I appreciate that, but still they're not getting the same facilities that they had, that they bargained for.
It's not really a planning issue,
Okay.
I think, but
No, it's
sort of a
legal
landlord and tenant issue, I guess, that there is if everyone in the building had it, you said of 71 units currently going to 76, only 20 now have lockers. So, I don't know, are these very small? What's the average typical unit size? Are they one bedrooms, two bedrooms? Like some apartments, newer buildings now, units are so small, there is no room for in-suite storage. Is there any in-suite storage for generally the 71 units, and more specifically these 20, or that are going to be?
Well, it's a mix of 1 and 2 and
Right.
bachelor units, so it just depends on the
So
size of the unit.
can we hear from the tenants, please?
Morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Do you need this? Yeah. My name is James Bird. I currently live at 65 Hillside, which is the more vertical on that drawing.
You have a storage unit?
I do, sir.
Is it in your lease?
I am unsure. I know that when I moved in 2014, it wasn't specifically applied in my lease, but it was. I know that there are others that do. We were just trying to talk about the total number of units available. We seem to think it's up in the 40 to 50 range that are available. Obviously, about, as said before, about 20 are being used currently. One thing that we wanted to bring up was...
Hold on, you're saying there are 40 to 50 lockers, of 20 of which are being used?
That's what we believe. We don't have the firm number.
You don't have any idea why the others aren't being used, whether they haven't been offered because they knew they were going to make this application, or whether they simply don't want the lockers or don't need the lockers?
I think it's...
Is there a separate charge for the locker in your lease?
When I moved in, there was a separate charge.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you have room in your apartment for the items you're storing in your locker?
I do not. My background, I'm a professional musician and a drummer at that. So as you can imagine, I have a lot of gear that I have, and on my side of the building, most of the storage lockers are about 4 by 6 and about that tall.
Has the landlord indicated to you as to whether you're going to be entitled to a storage locker?
The only thing that I've heard about it was just out in the hall today, that there would be 6, and that we would be, I would be contacted privately, which I don't think is good process, but.
It's going to be a lottery.
I guess, yeah.
All right, so can you just sum up now?
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. The hardship for me, and I think a lot of is, by 4 by 6 unit outside of our building would be, $150 to $200.
So if you don't have a storage unit in the base, how much are you paying now?
For the
locker.
For my locker, I believe the going rate is about $30 to $40.
Okay, if you don't have a locker in the building, are you able to stay in that building?
To live, yes, but it would just be a lot more money to be able to store my personal things.
That's assuming you get a storage locker somewhere.
Off-site.
Yeah.
But somewhere convenient.
Yeah, I think the closest place convenient for my amount of gear would be probably about a 5-minute drive away. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You have
a lot of storage facilities in the city.
Correct. Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning, my name's Sean Hammond. I'm just here to present some documentation regarding a contract holding between the tenant, Mr. James Hammond, as well as the landlord, Daniel Drimmer.
Relating to?
The storage space located beside the two garages on the western wall, at the west side, the eastern.
Are you his legal representative?
Yes,
or
yes,
his
I am.
agent? Or
Yes, he can't be here today, so he
Give us
asked
your
me to
name
come
and
and
address
bring
for
it
the
in.
record. We need your name for the record.
Oh, Sean Hammond.
Okay, you're acting on behalf of?
James Hammond,
I see.
apartment 201.
Okay. So the documentation you want to hand us is just with respect to storage locker?
To that storage area, they hold a contractual agreement with Mr. Daniel Drimmer with regards to that storage space.
With Starlight or Mr. Drimmer personally?
Mr. Drimmer was the owner of Starlight and was the owner of the previous company that owned it. And this is a long-standing agreement back as.
How large is this space?
Pardon me?
How large is the locker space?
How large is the locker space? It's an L-shaped cove, I'd say approximately 10 feet running east to west, and maybe 15 feet running north to south. It's right where the writing is. There's some text that's been put on. The storage right beside it. No, on the other side, right there.
Okay, and how large is that?
Once again, it's about 10 by 15.
And is it your father?
Yes, it is.
Does he use it?
Yes, he does.
Full? And he pays, what does he pay for it?
I couldn't
Is that
tell.
an indefinite contract or does?
There is some financial values here. I don't know if those figures still retain, are still.
I don't know if that's a contract. Does it have a term to it, a start date and an end date, or is it indefinite?
I would say it's indefinitely because they've been trying this process as far back as 1993, based on these documents.
So what's the date of that document?
This document, the first one is from 1997, then I have one from 2016, as well as one from 1993.
I think the 2016 is probably irrelevant.
Does your father have any other place to store that?
No, we would have to seek out off-site storage.
Is he using the whole space, the 10 by 15?
Yeah, it's pretty densely compact right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would you like these or no?
No, we're fine. We understand.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Robinson? Do you have some rebuttal?
Couple things. First of all, I was just speaking with the Starlight representatives and looking at the option of dropping one unit.
Dropping what?
Dropping one unit to
Yes.
add in storage space. But one of the things I want to mention, this gentleman here, his parents are the supers, and the space that he's talking about was rented to them for parking, not for personal use. There's a private gym in one of them, and it was not rented out for that purpose, and the fire code would not permit it to be used for that purpose. So
For a gym or for a parking?
could be used for parking, could have been used for parking, is not being used for parking presently.
I see.
They will be provided with a parking space.
But this is this gentleman's father residing in a super's apartment?
Yes.
So that has a separate provision in the Landlord-Tenant Act, which is really not before us.
No, it's
My comment
not.
is,
I understand
there's nothing
that.
in here about, there's no variance for parking for lockers here. It's just parking.
Correct. That's correct.
Mr. Hammond is a tenant of the building, and he's not technically a super.
Okay, you the property manager?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we can introduce yourself.
Can we have your name, please?
Yes.
And Mr. Hammond is a tenant of the building. He's been there for approximately 30 years, but he does reside in the building as a tenant, and he also has a part-time position with us. The spaces that are being referred to in the letter are the parking garages, which are to be used for a vehicle and not for storage or for gym purposes. Okay?
So, just a minute, when you say letter, you mean
The letter that this
he's
gentleman's
presenting?
referring to, that Mr.
So,
Drimmer provided him with.
All right,
is
but
for
the
parking.
landlord hasn't objected to the use he's making of it.
Pardon me?
Landlord has not objected to the use he's making of it.
Well, we have, yes, but we haven't been successful.
Okay.
And
All right, so that's not one of the 20 locker spaces that Ms. Robinson
I
was
checked
talking
with Mr. Hammond last week to confirm that he didn't in fact have a locker,
Okay.
and
So
he
that's something-
clarified that he
something
doesn't
else.
have a locker.
That's something he has to work out with you, it's not part of this application.
Can we get your name for the record? We don't
Sorry,
have
it's
your-
Heather Trimble?
She gave her name. Okay, Ms. Robinson, do you have instructions to drop a one dwelling unit?
I do. And
Would
it's,
would that restore the 20
yes, it would.
storage lockers?
So it's unit number 3, which is 38.3 square meters. And what I was doing back there was, and I'll show you where it is.
So the purpose changes to 4 dwelling units?
So it's 38.3 square meters, which would make the building 5,988.5 square meters. And I was trying to find the site area, because I don't want to get the calculation on the floor space index wrong. And the survey, the print is just too tiny for me to read it. So,
Is there a variance that needs
yes.
an amendment?
The
Please
two,
tell us
number
what-
2 and
Number 2?
under 569, 2013.
Okay, what change need to take place?
Well, so the size of the building will be, see where it says 1.61?
Yeah.
That number will change. The number of square meters will be 5,988.5 square meters.
And the
And-
283 meters goes down by 38.3.
38.3
minus
square meters
38.3.
got subtracted.
So the only number we don't have is the new gross floor area.
The one in place of 1.61.
How long will it take you to get that?
10 minutes or 5 minutes. I just want to make sure I get the number right, because I don't want to have the wrong number. Pardon me?
So that's the only thing that would change. The 1.61 is lower.
Correct. And it shows the actual GFA number. That we've got. The 6,026.8.
So let's go back for a second. The one thing that would change, I'm persuaded by your recommendation. I think it's a good solution. The purpose of the application would change from 5 dwelling units to 4,
Yes.
okay? And then the floor space index.
Variance number 2.
Variance number 2.
So the 283 would go down to 244.7, because 283 minus 38.3
Right.
is 244.7 by calculation.
And I'm looking, I'm still don't have the number in place of 1.61.
The 283 is the addition. The increase is now going down by 38.3.
0.3, correct.
So that's 244.7. And the floor space index, or the total, is from 6,026.8, you said, to 59.88.5, right?
Square meters.
But you said, Ms. Robinson?
No,
Yes.
she gave us the figure.
Yeah.
He's just repeating the figure.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate to stand, taking Ms. Robinson at her word, could we stand this down for 10 minutes, and could she come back with the new numbers, and then we're not delaying all of it?
It works out to 1.6. Works out.
So that would, okay, do you want to read through your changes then? They're coming from you?
It works out to 1.6. So variance number 2 to bylaw 569, 2013. The variance will be an increase to the floor area of 244.7 square meters, increasing the floor space index to 1.6 times the area of the lot, 5,988.5 square meters.
And the reference in variance 2 to 5 new ground floor units changes to 4 as well.
What variance is that?
The
That's
wording
in
in
the
Unit 2.
purpose.
No, it's also in the variance.
Oh, in the preface.
In the
So
preface,
it
yeah.
says four,
That's-
it says 4 new ground floor instead of 5, right?
4, yeah,
And then variance 1 to the other bylaw is exactly the same, right?
exactly the same.
And there are no other variances?
No other changes.
Do the
Other than
objectors
how
know what
the-
we're talking about? Do you know what's been proposed? The applicant has proposed to drop one of the proposed dwelling units from 5 to 4, and by so doing, retaining that space as storage, which will give a maximum of 20 storage units, which is what you've got occupied now.
Assuming it's unit number.
No. I think that's a good solution.
I mean, the current location of the lockers are here.
Yeah, I know, but
But,
I would still, I'm speaking in favor of the application now. I wasn't going to vote for this application. I think this is a reasonable compromise. I think there was a problem for the existing tenants. If there are such a limited amount of storage, I think this is a reasonable alternative. I just wanted to make sure you understood what they're proposing. So the locker space would be in a different location, but it would be the same amount of locker space that is occupied now.
Would it be the same size?
There'll be a standard size. They'll reconfigure it. Sometimes they can stack them now. There's different ways to make the spaces. So some people may have really large, I don't even know what the current sizes are, but they can fit 20 spaces into there, from what I've seen of storage lockers in apartments and condos. And they have the other room as well, so they don't have to fit 20 into that room, because they have that
That's
other room
one,
too.
Okay. All right, so can I just ask you, sir, if that's going to be sufficient? Are the size going to be sufficient?
I mean, as long as the average size of the new lockers will be
Similar to what it is now?
similar, I mean, because currently we do have floor to ceiling, the lockers are floor to ceiling. And again, I would say the average size is 4 to 6 feet. So if we go, like I know a lot of newer storage units are only floor to half and smaller, that may cause issues for some tenants.
But you'd appreciate that before that's not something we can't specify the size of lockers.
Absolutely, sir.
That's not before us. What was before us is an expansion into storage area and parking to provide additional units. What the applicant has proposed in response, I would argue, to your representation, your colleague's representation, is that they will remove one of the proposed dwelling units and leave it as storage space. In terms of how big the storage space, that's not before us, and we really can't adjudicate on that anyway.
I understand. I mean, that would, as a matter of personal opinion, I know I would suggest maybe leaving the current storage space where it is. That obviously changes everything, but certainly the new proposal to maintain some storage space is better than what we walked in here with.
Thank you. All right, any further questions?
No.
We have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the revised application. Although some of the details are missing, I do think that it's a step forward to what was on our agenda and what everybody came here to discuss today. My compliments to the owner and his representatives. I think this is a reasonable alternative. With those revisions, I think that this actually clearly meets the test for variance and would in fact be an improvement to the area.
Second.
I'll second that, but the proviso that I would have approved the application in its entirety. I don't see any variances for lockers. We're hearing only 14 people out of 71, so not everyone has lockers anyway. I see this as a landlord and tenant matter that would have had them resolved in some method under that act, which is not before us. We plan for property, not for people. People come and go. I realize I love drummers. I think you probably have your drum equipment, but if it's not something you can store in your unit. So I just wanted to state for the record, I think it's nice that the applicant did this, but I don't think that that's strictly something that should have precluded us. Affordable housing, adding 5 new rental units is a good thing for the city, and I'll support my colleague's motion. Thank you.
I would not have supported the application as it was. I now support it as it is. All in favor? You have your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 8, 34 Ellerbeck Street. Ellerbeck Street. The purpose of this application is to construct a parking pad in the front yard of an existing detached 2-story dwelling. Can we have a little quiet, please? We have before us material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from planning and transportation, staff reports from planning, engineering, and transportation, support, letters in support, and many letters in opposition. Would the opponents come up and sit in this row, first row here? You're the only... Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. Sure.
So could you tell us, what you found? First of all, give us your name, please.
My name is Sam Spagnolo. I'm a family friend. So
Okay, and you're representing?
I'm representing the
the
owners.
Macos?
Yeah.
All right, could you tell us what you're filing here?
So you received a pretty hefty package from the owner, which is this. What we're submitting is 4 additional letters of support, which brings us to 45 letters of support.
Okay, could you, just a minute, I want to read into the record the
Sure.
letters of support.
I have an updated one with 4 more letters.
Oh, you don't, they're not in this package?
There are, but there are 4 more addresses in here. That's not.
So why don't you give us the letters of support?
This is 45 letters of support. There were 41, 4 additional letters on the street.
All right, so I won't read it into the record.
Yeah. There's also one of the letters of support I put my phone on. We contacted, of objection, has withdrawn his objection, 17 Chester. We explained the application, and he withdrew it.
Okay.
Also, I'm going to give you a copy of correspondence with transportation.
Yes, but we usually have those.
Why don't you give us an overview of the application? Why don't we hear about
Sure.
the people that are concerned and then see if there's
Yeah.
more
So,
information that we need?
I don't know if
So
you've...
just one minute before you start. What's this one, Parkview Building Supply?
So we're using permeable pavers
Oh,
for the
okay.
driveway.
Well, we understand what permeable pavers
Yeah,
are.
so
Okay.
we just wanted to give you
So-
some documentations for it.
Yeah.
So in front of you is a complete package that shows support from 45 neighbors. Of the 68 houses on Ellerbeck, 43 have signed support. There's 2 variances. One is soft landscaping, and the other is to maintain an existing stair that's there. If you know the neighborhood, it's a overparked. There's currently, as of 2017, there were 286 permits released for 269 spaces. So 106% permits for the available spaces. What the owners are trying to do and deal with is to remove one of the cars from the permit and put it on the front yard, which is typical in this neighborhood. There are a number of front yard parking pads. There are 9 legal according to planning, but if you go up and down the street, there are way more than that. There are a number of parking spaces, parking pads in front where they have parking in the back. This is a single family dwelling, not it's detached.
Well, these, the ones that you say are may
They're in your
not be
package.
legal, may not be legal, do they have curb cuts?
They have curb cuts.
Okay.
They've been there for a long time.
Thank you.
So there are a number of garages at the front where they use the garage for storage and they park in the boulevard. This is completely maintained on the private property. There is no parking in the boulevard. This came as a result of discussions with Transportations. There's a drawing from Transportation indicating that this is the way they'd like to see this parking work. As far as they're in your package, this over 200 pages of documentation of approvals for minor variances for front yard landscaping. There is a estimate through there of taking the front yard, because he doesn't know where the property line, the owner actually went property by property and estimated the soft landscaping. Because he wasn't privy to where the property line is, he took the same proportion of what his front yard is. 50% is private property, 50% is boulevard. And you can see the documentation through this package, photos, that there are a number of properties that have zero landscaping or minimal at best. There are a couple diagonal parking spaces. One is completely horizontal, is the corner house. What number is that? 4 Plater, where they park parallel to their front yard. And there's one across the street, which is at 30 degrees to the house. But those legal parking spaces are right up to the front steps, where we're not impeding the access to the house. We're moving away from the steps. The steps are free and clear. So I can go through this whole package if you want. Or we can show you on Google Earth what the street is, how it is, and how many driveways and...
We have an extensive package.
Yes.
We've all been through it.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need to repeat what we've already...
What's in the package. It's a detailed, very precise document. There is one nomenclature in here that we wanted to clarify. He didn't understand it. In Chapter 3, when they talk about front yard parking, and it says driveway or laneway, it's a driveway. I had to explain to the owner what a laneway was, because he thought the driveway to the back was considered a laneway, but there is no laneways in this neighborhood, in this particular street. So
hear what the neighbors have to say.
Could I just ask a question? I'm just looking through the package here.
Yeah.
The neighborhood's been polled in accordance with the typical practice. They polled the neighborhood. But I see here, someone gave me you have a street poll in here, percentage in favor 88%,
Correct.
percentage opposed 12%. Actual number of houses 78, percentage who voted 55%. Where does this come from? Is this
So
a
basically,
conducted study or one that your client?
So the client went through the process of getting a front yard parking pad through council, and they went twice, and both votes were null and void. So he can explain what happened there.
No, but I'm saying this is something he conducted himself. It's at odds with the one.
No, this is from the voting from the council where they voted for the front yard parking pad.
Sorry, my name is Jim Demacos. I'm the resident.
Yep.
That's my wife, Cecilia. I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
So I'm saying you've attached a street poll here, which looks like 88% of
Yes.
Yes.
I went up and down the street and talked to all my
I
neighbors.
guess only 55 people, voted. I don't know if people weren't home.
I have a total
refused,
of 50,
But, are we supposed to, when the neighbor goes, is supposed to, I don't know how the city does it, I believe by mail, when people.
They do a ballot by mail, yes.
Right, so
It's
if you show
anonymous.
up at their front door and say, I'm just trying to reconcile the two results. Your poll was taken when? When was their polls taken?
Their poll was taken over 2 years ago.
Okay, and
Your last poll was taken over
is
2 years
recent?
ago. Sorry?
When did you do your poll?
In the last month, give or take.
Okay.
But if I may add.
You went door to door and knocked on the doors?
Yes, sir. I also had things offered to, like support offered to me. But I'd like to add that respectfully, if you could not consider the poll, as it was null and void. For instance, in the first poll, we weren't given ballots. And additionally, I'd like to add, very simply.
Does the city say it's null and void, or are you saying it's null and void?
Yes, the city says it's null and void. I have a letter here from
Okay,
the city.
all right, so
null and void
they don't count.
They don't count. None of these count. But
All right,
additionally.
so perhaps you're over your time. Sure. So let us hear from the neighbors, please.
I have a question before they go.
Sure.
I want to make sure I've got all the facts straight. There is on-street parking on the west side of the street.
For 7 months of the year, it is full-time parking. For the other 5 months of the year, it's
Altered, so you go to the other side so they can clean the snow.
Exactly.
It indicates that there are 2 on-street parking permits for this property.
For our property, we have 2 cars.
And you're proposing to do what with the 2 cars if this was approved, where will the 2 cars go?
So one car will get a front yard parking pad, and the other one will maintain the permit. So we're removing one car from the permit.
Or alternatively, you could park illegally on this rather exaggerated big driveway and parking space that you've proposed.
Well, it only has one legal parking space. That's all it has. If you look at the spot, it's 2.6 by 5.6.
So my understanding was that this whole application was generated by the fact that on-street parking was a problem.
Correct.
Well, if it's a problem, how are you going to maintain, you're still going to use it?
Sorry?
You're still going to use it.
One parking space.
Yeah, I know, but if
Gonna
it's
leave
a
it
problem, you're still going to use one of them.
Correct.
So it can't be that much of a problem, you wouldn't be using it.
We have to park sometimes as far as 100 meters from our house. I've parked on a street called Butternut Street, if you took that.
Okay, I appreciate, that's not to downplay that, but that's a problem currently all over the city. I'm just trying to get an understanding of what particular reason there is for this particular proposal, given the fact that the planning department's recommendation is that it be refused, and they've given us a lot of evidence of why. And I just wanted to make sure that I've got all the information that I need to make the appropriate decision. So if this was approved, you would park one space on the
front yard parking pad?
Yeah, and which is angled.
Correct.
So, and you're going to lose that space that you're currently using now on the street. You're going to use a secondary space still on the street.
Correct. We won't lose a full spot because the driveway is only 2.6 meters and a legal parking space is 5.6 meters.
I want to follow up on that because I'm just looking through your pictures, and a lot of the examples you show me are similar, where I'm all in favor of pad parking, but not when it loses a street spot, because then you're just trading one for the other.
Yeah.
So sometimes you gain in off the mutual curb cut, and you just...
Yeah, we're not...
I see a number of those are that situation. So could you not do that? My concern is losing the street spot, but you just said, Mr. Spagnolo, that you're not going to lose the street spot. I don't know if there's a hydrant
We're losing
there, or there's
40% of a parking spot based on the amount of time it's on the west side, because 7 months of the year it's on the east side.
So effectively, you're losing a spot.
40% of a spot.
Yeah, you're not going to parcel a car.
I don't understand what you mean by 40%, unless you have, could it fit?
Because there's no defined parking spot like on-street parking where they define.
Right, but sometimes it's a difference with where the next curb cut is, you can't park. I've seen streets where everyone has a parking pad, and you can't park anywhere on the street because everything is...
What he's saying, Mr. Clark, is that 7 months of the year, you park on one side of the street.
Right.
His house is on the other side, so
it's only
by
half
his
of-
curb cut.
Yeah.
Would you sit down and stop shaking your head and putting your hand up? You're not recognized to speak here. So, 7 months of the year, you don't lose a spot.
Actually, sir, it's the other way around.
5 months.
He's saying it's the other way around.
7 months of the year, you do lose a spot.
All right, but
The other five, half of the other, it's only half of the other 5. So that leads to that's my only concern in terms of pad parking, is that I think it's a great, aside from the issue when you have a winter like this, where do you put the snow if everything, you have extra parking, and then that's a separate issue. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get into that issue with snowbanks on the street because
Yeah.
people don't have the room on their own property to put the snow because of the pad parking.
Mhm.
That's a separate issue. But my main concern is when you lose a street spot, you're trading off one for one.
Correct.
So you mentioned 40%.
Correct, because it's only 2.6 meters of a legal parking spot. Now, we know that there's all different sizes of vehicles. A small vehicle is 4.4 meters in length rather than a full parking space of 5.6.
I see.
So if you look at the
Saying a
proportions.
Small car can spill.
Yeah, and on this side, there aren't very many driveways in front of in front of his home. So you're only losing effectively 2.6.
In this package, refresh my memory, there's a lot of material here.
Yeah.
Do you have a photograph of the existing condition in front of your house right now?
You do. Go put it on the.
Can we see it?
Sure, he's going to show it to you right now.
Thank you.
That's the existing condition. No. No, that's, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
No?
that's,
So your parking space goes through a retaining wall?
yeah, yeah.
No, we'll be moving that.
That retaining wall is being removed.
What are you doing about the grade changes then?
There's a retaining wall. If you look at the drawing, there's a retaining wall on the property.
So
that will, let's see where,
Mr. Spinelli, in our package of all these pictures, we have a picture of the subject property or no?
I don't think we do, sir.
Okay. In some streets, I'm familiar with the area, certain streets
Yeah.
like Jackman and Butternut are
Yeah.
larger type properties. Fulton smaller.
I don't know the detail, I don't need the details. The point is, it's not a simple matter to put this parking pad in. You've got grade changes to, can you put that back on, please?
oh, sorry.
You've got grade changes there to accommodate.
Correct.
You're going to have to reconfigure where the retaining wall goes.
Correct.
That's my only point. I don't need to see the details.
Okay.
If I may add, sir, we actually had removed that grade and replaced it before at a contractor who had done that, not knowing the rules, and we were asked to put it back. Since then, I've been told by forestry that it's not a problem to remove it.
All right.
Thank you. We're going to
Okay.
hear from the neighbors now.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is William Habkirk. For over 40 years,
Your address, sir?
I was just about to give that.
Oh, thank you.
I have lived with my family at 26 Ellerbeck Street for over 40 years. This property is 5 properties south of the applicants. I have, my wife and I have submitted documentation that is in the letters of objection earlier. I would, at this time, just like to quickly review what I said there. I tried to explain that the 4 conditions typically required for minor variances were not met. One, that the general intent and purpose of the official plan is maintained, as we don't believe it is. The approval of this front yard parking pad and minimal soft landscaping would not be in supportive of the plan's emphasis on making right choices for the city and of creating a city with attractive tree-lined streets and green spaces. Community planning is also of the opinion that the variances are counter to the official plan. We also believe the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaws are not maintained. One item is that the property is no longer compatible with existing properties in the neighborhood. Again, community planning agreed with that in their staff report.
Are you
And-
saying, sir, that there's no parking pads on Ellerbeck?
There are parking pads. I believe community planning, you'd have to look at their staff report. I can't quote it exactly, but they reviewed the parking pads along that side of Ellerbeck and agreed that it was not in keeping. There were not enough of them to support a parking pad. Also, my contention is that this parking pad is completely different than any parking pads on the street. It is at a very severe angle, almost parallel to the front of the house, at an angle of about 70 degrees from perpendicular to the road. There's only one other parking pad equivalent to this on the street at number 103 Ellerbeck Street. A particular item for my family is that we live in a unique row of 9 houses from number 24 to number 40, which is a length of approximately 65 meters, and there is no existing driveway or parking in that section of the road. It's probably the longest section of Ellerbeck without any parking or driveway.
That's from 24 to 40.
24 to 40, yes. All these properties have a large amount of soft landscaping, bushes and trees. The intrusion of a parking pad at number 34, we believe, with only 19% landscaping, would be aesthetically unappealing and a detriment to that section of Ellerbeck. And then there would be the problem with parking that you were discussing earlier. We believe that 67% of the year there would be a loss of parking on the street. For people in this area who don't have on-site parking, this is a severe problem. And the applicant said that the driveway was 2.6 meters, but as far as I remember, they allow an extra 0.3 meters on either side of that, where they don't assume there will be parking. So really, I think you have over 3 meters of space taken away. Parking is very variable on the street. People who don't live in the area park haphazardly in different places, and it's very easy to lose a full parking spot by taking away 3 meters of parking. And as I say, it's 67% of the year when parking occurs on that side of the street. It, in my opinion, would be an undemocratic action to take parking away from the residents and the public and give it permanently to one person.
Would you wrap up, sir?
Yes. I would just like to say that I think having 10 objections, including ours, to this parking pad is significant. And it should also be noted that one of the objections is from the neighbor directly beside the applicants at number 36.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So one thing I'd like to clear up in rebuttal, there were 11 letters of objection on file this morning. One has been withdrawn, which I shown you, and 3 of those letters were from one address, 39 Ellerbeck. So in total, they're basically there would be 7 letters of objection from addresses, because they just got the husband, the wife, and the son to write a letter of objections. The net loss, if you're taking one permit parking off and putting it on a parking pad, there is a net 0 loss. Even if we took a full parking space, you're taking one off the street and putting it on a parking pad.
Exactly.
Net 0.
Well,
0.
it's 100% Mr. DeMacos and 0% for the neighborhood as a whole.
I'd like to respectfully say that there's
4 houses of that strip our neighbor was referring to. Number 24 has parking, and number 40 has parking. Number 26, 28, 30, 32, and 36 are neighbors that do not have parking. Number 32 has supported us. Number 38 is a rental unit. And so there's really typically only 4 houses with cars on our side of the street that have a need for parking in that strip he's referring to. I'd like to also say that it's not just...
Just a minute.
Yes, sir.
When you say they have parking, do they have front
No, I apologize, sir.
yard
They have
parking?
cars to park. My mistake. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say that they have cars to park. There's only 4 of those houses, and they have permits to park. There's no...
So they park on the street. His point, your neighbor's point, was that none of these houses from 24 to 40 have front yard parking. In other words, they all have soft landscaping.
Well, I believe he said they don't have parking, not front yard parking, but
Well, I took it to mean they don't have front yard parking and they have
Well,
soft
they don't need it, 'cause
landscaping. So
24
that,
has 2 parking spots in the back, and 40 has enough room for...
but we're not talking about the back.
I think we're clouding the issue. The gentleman's point was very clear, that for that row of houses, there is no front yard parking pads on the front yard, and as a result, the front yards of those homes are landscaped. Your proposal is to provide a minimal 19% landscaping, and he argued, and I think rightly so, that that's out of keeping with the area. That's all he said, and I don't think there's an objection to that. That's factual.
That's fine. Yeah, but
I think where we distinguish your application is the fact that the pictures you've given us a lot of pictures on many streets, Butternut or whatever, including Ellerbeck. They're either coming off the mutual drive and parking, or it's a private drive and they're just furring it out to get a second spot on their property. Whereas in your case, it's like you say, a 1-for-1, you make a curb cut, you put your car for Mr. DeMacos, and there's one less street spot.
But one less
I think it's a
permit.
lot
But there's one less
different than
permit.
some of these examples on larger lots where
Just
they
to
have
clarify,
private
there's
drives.
one less permit.
Or mutual.
Number 68 is also a house with no backyard, has just a front pad parking spot.
All right. Thank you. I think we
Okay,
get...
thank you.
I find the most persuasive thing is the fact that we have an unbroken stretch from 24 to 40 without any front yard parking, and we have soft landscaping, et cetera. I'm not persuaded that losing a parking spot on the street to someone who has his house there, so I can't go to Allen's or someplace like that and park my car on Ellerbeck. That deprives me of anything. So, but I am persuaded with respect to the front landscaping. So do we have any further questions, or do we have a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm equally persuaded by the submission of the gentleman that spoke to us about the lack of continuity of this rather actually quite lovely green spot that goes across the fronts of those houses. And this disrupts it in a rather dramatic way. The angled drive, the fact that the car is going to be across the front of the house, the amount of paving, I think, is excessive. The amount of landscaping that remains, I think, is inappropriate for the area. I am not persuaded by the loss of parking for parking because, as my colleague Mr. Clark indicated, there's a loss of one space that can be available to anybody in exchange for one space that can be available for the person that lives in this house if you choose to move, or if that space is not used. That is definitely a loss of public parking, and I think that that's a problem, particularly in this area. I also am persuaded by the report of the planning department. They've indicated in no uncertain terms that this does not comply with the official plan. I agree with their assessment, and on that basis, Mr. Chairman, I'm recommending refusal of the application.
We have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? Application refused.
Thank you.
Move on to number 12, 253 Cedarvale Avenue. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing two-story detached dwelling into a two-unit dwelling by constructing a two-story south side addition, a third-story addition with a rear deck and a front second-floor deck.
Excuse me, is the neighbor here on this application? Could you join us at the front table? Thank you.
Yeah, and we have before us in this application material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from planning, a staff report from urban forestry, correspondence and concern from 257 Cedarvale, and correspondence in opposition, 7 letters in opposition. Your name, sir?
My name is David Stickney. I'm the agent for the owner of the property who is here today with me.
Yes, have you been discussing this matter with the neighbors?
We have. There's no consensus, but we certainly have some offers to put before the committee that we think ourselves deal with some of the concerns of the neighbors. These are above and beyond any concerns that we dealt with at planning and at forestry. But I would just generally describe the condition of what's here. There was a permit issued, a committee decision in 2010, and a permit was issued at that time, which is still active. And the intention, some of the work has been done, but certainly not all of the work. I mean, interior, basement, and ground floor have been completed, but nothing above that. But the permit's still active and would be completed should the committee decide against the proposal today. What we're asking...
Could you tell us the difference between what was approved in 2010 and what you're asking for now?
That's what my presentation would be. So,
yes, thank you.
So in a nutshell, the request is to build over the driveway on the south side with an extension that's 2 stories high. And just to summarize a couple of the changes, I have them noted that were the changes that we're requesting on a plan which modify some of the variances. So if I went through that first.
Are these changes that you're going to introduce, are these the ones that you've negotiated with the owners, but you said that you still don't have an agreement?
The changes that are noted are, in fact, what you see on the overhead at the moment is the 2010 permit site plan, and you can see that the driveway comes along the south side of the house and bends across and goes to the existing garage at the back. There's a large spruce tree that's noted at the bend in the driveway. The proposal that is in front of you has the driveway going straight through with the removal of the tree. With discussions with forestry, they would prefer that the tree be kept. There are terms that it can be removed, but there were concerns from planning and the neighbors about the maintenance of the tree. So what is on the site plan that's different that I've just presented to you is that driveway is shown exactly as the 2010 permit. That's exactly the existing condition on the site. Further notations that are on the site plan that I've just submitted is that there is privacy screens on the deck at the rear on the north and south side that are 5'6" high. And the additional note that's on there is that we would set back the south wall above the ground floor to a 3 feet, 0.9 meter setback, which complies with the bylaw. And I'll explain that a little bit more because we're proposing columns that are still 0.1 from the south property line, and there would be columns along that support this addition above, allowing the cars to get through. Parking is an issue in this neighborhood, and we wanted to maintain as much parking as possible on site. So building over the driveway makes a lot of sense.
So those changes that you just described, that requires a whole new set of plans. They're different plans than what we have.
No, they're the same. It's essentially moving the wall over 1 foot above the...
So They're not the same as what we have in here, though, right? I mean, and you know, while I've got you on that, I have another question, and maybe it's a matter of timing. We have a memo from Stephanie Hong, the assistant planner on this file, and what the memo says is, I'm reviewing your minor variance application. Please reduce the height of your proposal, as we typically don't accept anything over 9 meters unless there's a significant difference in grade. Does the plans that we have now, do they respond to that request?
I've discussed that with Stephanie, and she agreed. The existing proposal has been approved at
with what?
9.98.
Well, that's not, we don't have anything from her that says that.
Well, we have the permit set that I have here that is for 9.98 meters.
I don't know, was that across?
That's a variance from the 2010 Committee of
2010,
Adjustment.
got that. 9.98, now you're asking for 9.99.
Insulation.
Same.
But
you were granted that when you only came to committee with, I guess, 2 variances. That was a different, that was never built, correct? That was never built? Because the neighbors.
Well, some of it's built and the permit's active, so it could be completed as per the 2010 decision.
My point is that what we have on file is a suggestion that the building's too high and it needs to be done, and we don't have anything that suggests that there's been a change in that position. You're saying that she has changed her position?
She has changed her position. The conditions that she requested were that she was fine with the height because it's existing in the existing permit. She's fine with the 9.98, and I argued 9.99 for insulation. The request that she had was that the front wall of the third floor be set back 3 feet 4, which is noted on the site plan that's just submitted. It's on the site, that is on the site plan that you have. It's highlighted.
I know, but we're here to deliberate an issue.
Right.
We require, or we respond to advice we get from departments. The last piece of advice I have from Stephanie would indicate that what we have before us is unacceptable. If she's changed her mind, she needed to give us information to that effect. We don't have that information. And the stepping back, I don't know about that. Basically, you're talking about a proposal I know nothing about.
Well, sir, the proposal, the plans that you have a height of 9.99 meters on them.
Okay, fine. I will advise you from the very beginning, my notes on this file are, in my view, I'm waiting to be persuaded otherwise, that the building's too high. That was my comment when I reviewed these items at home. I'm waiting to hear if there's anything that should change my mind, but based on what I have before me, I feel that the building is too high and it is out of context with what is on the street. If I understand correctly, they're all bungalows on this side of the street.
Well, I'll present some information.
Okay, fine. I don't think this is working out.
Starting from the large red 6-story building at the south end all the way up to Lumsden Avenue, we've noted which proposals in red are, which buildings are 2.5 or 3 stories. And 2.5 means that the ridge board allows you to stand up in the attic, or that it is an actual used space. The green represents 2 and 1.5 story buildings, again with the half-story representing ability to stand up. And the beige color represents what are bungalows. So the highlighted site in the very middle is the subject property, and it's within a range of buildings that are 2.5 and 3 stories, with the odd 1 story or 1.5 story around it. But we did the entire street with respect to having an image of what the averages were. If I were to present these houses are to the north, and the the wall height is 8.4 meters.
Right.
And the building heights are 11 meters. And I can speak with authority because that's my firm's project. We did that project of four dwelling units of those heights.
And those are 11 meters in height.
11 meters total. Immediately to the south, this is a typical, you can see how high the roofs are above the second story. So you're going up 4 feet to the ground floor, and you're going, I'm saying 9 feet, 9 feet. This specific one has space within the attic, but my argument is that from the property data map is that we're within a context of houses like that. To the south of us is a 2-story house, immediately to the south of the site. Immediately to the north, it's a 1.5 because there is a space in the attic that's usable. So we're calling it that, and if the committee refuses at the moment, the project goes ahead at 9.98 3-story dwelling. So my argument is that we're not asking for anything different from what was approved in 2010, other than the addition on the south side of the, over the driveway.
Mr. Stickney, I'm a little confused about Stephanie Hong's letter when she says reduce the height to 9 meters when you already had approval for 9.98. Was she not aware of that decision?
She was aware of that because the position that she took that was making it palatable to the planning department was the setback at the front, because the second story at the front is actually at 7.3 meters. So that's the height that's perceived in the streetscape, because we've set it back. She wanted recreation space for the main unit, so we've recessed the back. So on all floors, the proposal in front of you is shorter than what's approved on the 2010 permit. It's 12 feet shorter on the third floor, it's 4 feet shorter on the second floor, and it's 4 feet shorter on the ground floor. So it's pulling the entire, and if you look at the site plan, it's as long at the third floor level as the neighboring houses on the north and the south. So the amelioration that's happening in trading to the new permit is simply that there's a shorter third floor. I mean, if you look at the side elevation, there's a dotted line that tells you where the permitted front roof and permitted back roof, that's the full length of the 3-story house. We've shortened it by 12 feet, front and back, total.
All right, we'll hear from the neighbor now.
There's a few other requests to change the variance numbers, if I'm...
I don't know what we're dealing with. You have me confused, Mr. Stickney, and apparently my colleague as well, and the Deputy Secretary Treasurer is confused as well. So are we dealing with this application as is, or are we dealing with something else?
You said you want to make some changes?
I wanted to make some changes. 4.
Which variances are you changing?
And you've been speaking now for almost 13 minutes, and you're first telling us now you're making changes, which is a little unusual. You're regular here. So now you're telling us you're making changes.
No, in fairness, Mr. Chairman, he did indicate earlier at the outset that he had some changes.
Usually
we didn't know they were substantial. The problem that all of us are having is we're trying to figure out what we're looking at. We should either evaluate what's before us, and which is what the neighbors have seen, or if we're going to evaluate something different, if it's substantially different, maybe we should come back and review this another day. The issue that we have, we're not sure what we're looking at. Sure. We could, and it would be to everyone's detriment, go around in circles, not really. So do you want us to deal with what's on file, or do you want us to deal with the revised one?
I'm thinking, for the sake of clarity, because it's a difficult application, that we would come back with everything itemized and neighbors having everything in front of them.
Could we hear what the neighbors, so that would be a deferral. Could we hear what the neighbors think of a deferral?
Well, not hear from them on the merit. Like, he's gone on for 13 minutes on merits, and
whatever.
These people came here, so.
what we have currently, because it's confusing, the gentleman's quite right. This is a complicated application. And I think in response to having some of the difficulties raised to him, he's in goodwill. He's suggesting some changes that he thinks addresses some of those concerns. One would applaud that. The only issue is the changes are all over the place, and none of us are going to understand what it is we're doing. The suggestion is, should we come back and consider this another day? And the applicant has basically indicated he'd agree with that. So in effect, what he's doing is he's requesting a deferral, which means that this matter would come back in a month or two, and perhaps that's not the right time. But you would have all the new revised information. We would have all the new revised information. The applicant would have had the opportunity to present why the revised scheme is a good solution, and hopefully that would generate a more reasonable decision.
And Mr. Stickney, is the height going to be reduced in the revised and the changes you're planning on advising us about?
I would have to talk to Stephanie because verbally she's agreed with the proposal. I don't know what the date of the memo is.
March. Should we, if a deferral is granted, might I suggest that you get in touch with her and suggest that it would be advisable if she gave us a report?
Thank you, sir.
All right, so the issue, so I take it the neighbors are in favor of a deferral? All right. So do we have a motion? So the issue is deferral at this point. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move deferral to allow the applicant the opportunity to clarify the revisions he's proposing in response to the input he's received from the community.
We have a seconder?
You can second it?
No, you.
I'm not saying, I can't second that. I think we've listened, we haven't heard from the neighbors who came out here, took time out of their busy day to come here. We haven't even heard from them yet. After hearing from the applicant for 13 minutes, and I didn't hear him say earlier that I would have asked for the changes that usually are made at the outset. So, although I agree it's confusing, I think it's a hardship for these people to, unless, I don't know if they're in favor of this. We haven't even heard from them yet, after we heard from the applicant for so long. So I think we should be making a decision today on this, on what's before us. So you can second the motion, if you wish.
I can't second the motion. Can I second the motion?
Yes.
Oh, all right, I second Mr. Nepfel's motion.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion for deferral?
Opposed.
Have your deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Haven't even heard from these people, what they're complaining. We have the letters, though. Yeah, and neighbors, if you can make sure you fill out one of those decision request cards, make sure you're re-notified of when to come back.
And Mr. Stickney, we're assuming that you will be meeting with these and the other neighbors before you come back.
We'll present all the material to them.
That's
Yes.
great, and then we'll have a report from planning, and hopefully we'll have everything we need.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 15, 514 Jarvis Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2.5-story detached dwelling with a rear 1-story historic carriage house by constructing a 2nd-story addition above the garage house and a 1-story garage with a rooftop deck that will connect the main building and the carriage house. And before us on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, staff reports from planning, heritage, and urban forestry. We have support from 506 Jarvis and 103 Gloucester, and we have opposition from 512 Jarvis Street. Yes, sir.
I have one additional letter of support that came in.
Bring it forward. Thank you. I have a letter of support filed from 107 Gloucester Street. Your name, sir?
My name is Mark Hall, and I'm here to represent Emily Matthew and her husband Abe Matthew, who are owners and custodians of this important heritage property at 514 Jarvis. I'm a principal of M.W. Hall Corporation, a licensed architect, registered professional planner, and a certified heritage architect. In the late 19th century, Jarvis Street was a grand tree-lined boulevard that extended to city limits at Bloor Street with significant grand mansions that fronted on the boulevard. 514 is today surrounded by mixed development with multiple high-rise residential and office buildings. Jarvis Street is a major 5-lane thoroughfare with heavy traffic and no longer the grand boulevard of the 19th century. Parking is limited, and it's a major driver of what we're
Sorry,
proposing.
Mr. Hall, if I could just interrupt you for 1 second. I
Sure.
just realized I have a conflict in this application. With respect to the neighbor at 512, I see the letter is Mrs. Amati, and I see Mr. Amati in the room, and I'm acquainted with Mr. Amati. I didn't realize he was here.
Okay.
I'm going to declare a conflict and go take a little break. Okay? Leave you in this capable gentleman's hands. Yes. Thank you.
Carry on, Mr. Hall.
All right. As I mentioned, 514 Jarvis is a mixed development with multiple high-rise development and office buildings across the street in the immediate vicinity. The original property at 514 included 5112 adjacent to the south and was severed in the 1970s, I believe, with rear access to 5112 via a laneway at the back of the lot of 514 behind the historic Heritage House that's been there for 150 years. This severance created some of the required variances being requested. Further, according to the official plan, Toronto proposes that lands along Jarvis become a continuous high-rise development corridor in the downtown core of Toronto. Preservation Services has designated 514 Jarvis and 4 other mansions south along Jarvis as heritage buildings under the Ontario Heritage Act. 514 is the northernmost of those mansions. There is already a 1970s high-rise apartment building just north of Gloucester across the street from 514. Clearly, this is a mixed-use neighborhood. Because of the mixed-use neighborhood, Emily and Abe have experienced vandalism. They've been there 2 years now, and to address this vandalism requires these minor variances. They asked us to design a garage between the house and the renovation of the carriage house to protect their cars. We worked closely with Toronto Preservation Services to design this functional and heritage-correct addition to the property. In our final meeting with heritage staff, they support the design being presented to you for approval, but which now requires the minor zoning variances.
So, Mr. Hall, when you say vandalism, do you mean to their cars?
Yes.
And they park their cars on their property, but not in a garage?
They actually, the property line is not too distant from the curb, and so they can park in the space between. They can park one car in the space between the house and the carriage house by opening a wood gate that's there now. As a matter of fact, let's get the photograph of the. This is the house. This is the house that is as it is today. A view from the northeast. And so at the rear of the house there, you can see the house, the original house, and then there's with a sloped roof, a small addition built some years back. And then beyond that is the open space, and behind the tree is the carriage house, which has been truncated over the years to a one-story building.
Was the carriage house originally 2 stories?
It was originally 2 stories with a pitched roof. Yeah, it had a loft or second floor, but that has been removed. It now has a flat roof on it. And so this This is our
proposal for a second story, is that a historic restoration?
It is, yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I have a question I'm wondering about. You've seen the planning department report?
I have.
Okay. One of the comments is that the proposed addition would result in a continuous building mass at the first floor of the majority of the lot that would result in incompatibility with the rear yard amenity space of the adjacent property to the south, which is the property you mentioned, 512, for which the right-of-way access was originally provided.
That's right.
At the present time, what takes place between the existing historic house and the existing carriage house? There's a space there. Is that used for parking now?
It's not designed for parking. It was originally paved. Actually, when it was constructed, it was just dirt is where the carriages came in before they got disentangled the horse and so on. So it's never been landscaped. That area between the house and the carriage house has never been landscaped.
And is it used for parking now?
There's for one space.
So in fact, this concern about the amenity space at 512, basically there's parking there now. The only thing is that you're trying to partially enclose it.
You mean 514? Our address is 514. At 512?
No, the concern for planning's concern seems to be with the amenity space for 512.
Oh.
And I'm trying to put that in context. As I see it, half of the space that's between the existing house and the carriage house, half of it's covered up by the house at 512. There's this very small space that would be exposed to that open space, which you say is now used for parking.
There's a fence along that property line between 514 and 512, a board fence. I think it's 4 feet high. 512 uses that backyard at the moment as parking. It's never been landscaped as far as we know.
Okay, that clarifies. I didn't understand. This doesn't sound that this is actually a real concern based on existing conditions. So thank you, you clarified that.
Right.
So what is the carriage house used for now?
Storage.
It's not suitable for parking a car.
It's not suitable for parking of a car, and we can't really modify the building because it's a heritage building. Both Emily and Abe are artists, and they may use it as working studio space, sort of separate from the living spaces within the house.
You mean the second story?
The second story and the ground floor, both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could hear from the neighbor. We will call you back to rebut anything they provide.
Okay, if I may, just one other, I'd like to make two other points.
Could you make them briefly,
one is that is that when this house was constructed, there, of course, was no zoning bylaw, period, any place. And so some of the issues, like about the overall length and so on, wouldn't have been an issue except that there's a new zoning bylaw sort of overlaying on this historic property. And the same, so that applies to a series of the zoning variances too. Further, the planner in his letter just basically reissued the items noted within in the zoning review, and the planner's comments do not reflect the character of this mixed-use community. It looked solely at the zoning, the present zoning of this now single-family residence, which has been through a history of office space, hotel, and the Matthews purchased it and have restored it, the interior, and they still need to do the carriage house and to service their cars.
Thank you.
Sorry, two more
Sure.
questions. This is a complicated application, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify, your expertise is in architecture, city planning, and heritage.
That's correct.
And again, referring to the planning department's comments, they say that the, they talk about there being a garage in that space at the present time. Oh, here it is. The proposal also includes construction of a second story, yes, it does,
Of the
above
carriage house.
lawfully existing ancillary garage structure. But you indicated that it's just paved. Is there a garage structure there that I'm missing?
It's never been used as a garage.
Carriage house.
It's a carriage house.
They're talking about, well, but you're not proposing, well, you are, you're putting a second story on it. Okay, that's what they're referring to.
It's a misnomer to call it, to refer to it as a garage.
Thank you. I thought they meant the space in between the two.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. We'll hear from the neighbors. We'll hear from you again.
Okay, should I still?
Yeah, just take a seat.
Good morning. My name is Robert Wood. I'm the agent and representative for the owner of 512 Jarvis Street, the property adjacent to the south. Ms. Julia Amati. Mr. Mike Amati is here as well as a representative of the owner. My client does strongly oppose this application and these variances for many of the same reasons that are set out in the planning report and the staff planning report. What I have up here on the screen is, it's marked north elevation, but I believe it's the south elevation. It's basically what would be facing 512 Jarvis Street. So we have a continuous coverage of the lot with a 0-meter side yard setback. And a very high, in my submission, garage structure being proposed there, plus the new second story over the carriage house. And so we agree with the staff report that these variances are not minor and not appropriate or desirable for this site or in this neighborhood context, notwithstanding the fact that it fronts on Jarvis Street. In our submission, this is really extreme densification for a single-family use in a way, and in particular, the impacts to the south, as staff points out, trouble for the amenity space in the rear yard of 512 Jarvis Street. So overlook concerns with this proposed. You can see the humans on the deck above a very high garage structure and a very high deck area. The window in the second story of the proposed second story, doubling the height of the carriage house as well, with overlook concerns, of privacy concerns, and as staff says, basically just an inappropriate transition to the property to the south, 512 Jarvis Street.
Sir, do you have a photograph or a drawing of your client's property?
Yes, we can put.
All right. And also, could you tell us what's on the other side, south of 512?
So one of the difficulties my client has, they had latent.
Before you take that away, I wanted to ask a couple questions related to that. Am I correct that your client's home property goes to about there?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So in fact, this part isn't an intrusion, the house is already there.
Yes.
So it's from here to here that the concern is. At the present time, you have, I just want to make sure I've got the information correct.
Yes.
You've got a wooden fence here, that it would be presumably about that high. And you don't have that. What is the use of this backyard space at 512? 512 is your property.
Yes.
What is the use of that backyard space? Because we heard earlier that it's paved and it's used for parking. So if it were paved and being used for parking, I don't see the problem, but if it's amenity space, I can see the problem. So I need to know how you're using the back space.
I'm trying to get the My name is Mike Amadi. I'm the husband of Julia Falbo Amadi that owns the property. Yes. I'm trying to get one picture that actually explains the whole scenario and the situation of our building. If you indulge me a minute.
One of the difficulties we have is that the owners do not reside at the property. They received notice only about a week ago, retained me quickly, but have not had the opportunity to obtain planning advice, et cetera, and would like that opportunity at a minimum today, some time to.
So what is 512 used for now? Is it used as a dwelling?
It is it's the Mary Sheffield House for 27 residents who are transitional homeless, formerly homeless, older women.
That was before this committee previously.
That's correct.
My understanding is that rear yard is not landscaped. That rear yard
It is landscape.
It is landscape?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Because we heard earlier that it isn't, that it's paved for parking.
I'm gonna.
This area is grass.
Yes.
Whether it is paved or not, or used for parking, it is certainly a potentially very valuable amenity space for a building that now houses 27 individuals, in modest circumstances within the building.
You have 27 clients. Presumably there's a staff associated with 27 clients, and these people need a place to park. I'm assuming there isn't a lot of parking in here. I'm assuming that's where the parking is for the building. And that's certainly what the applicant representative suggested to us earlier.
Okay, what I'm gonna do, if you allow me, I'm gonna show you the pictures of the property.
Put it on the overhead, please.
This is the property, the garage area that subject to this application. This is the carriage house, and this is a space in the middle. That space, that wall that was a fence, and there was trees planted, was taken out.
Could you speak up, sir? I can't hear you.
Yes. The picture over here shows the carriage house, and beside it, there is a black line as a fence that used to be a gate. Wasn't a gate, but that was a fence, and there was trees in between. I'll show you the pictures in a minute. That was taken out to accommodate the renovation for the 514 Jarvis in the past.
Can you go back there for a second, because it just proves your point, I think. And this is the right of way that
Yes.
is dedicated from this property.
Yes.
There's the parking, so in fact, it is green space.
Yes, that's a green space, yes. Yeah. Should I show you more pictures?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Sir, you haven't told me what's on the other side of 512, south of it.
It is a 16-unit apartment building that has been apartment building since the.
So how does it compare in size to 512?
Well, I mean, the aerial photo completely shows the line of the buildings. This drawing doesn't show, but I could, if you look at this aerial photo.
On our drawing here, it looks like it goes back quite a ways past the back of 512.
I would say it's about I would say 15 feet, but there is quite a bit of distance between 512 and 506. There is over 25 feet of space because of the setback of 512 and 510. That is I think 508 or 510. Now, this building is 514. The other line, straight line, if you go, that is 512. And then the neighbor's south side of 512 is 510. That jogs out.
And I think that photograph also shows that there's plenty of room to put 2 cars in the existing parking area on the site.
That's very helpful, thank you very much.
2 cars at 514, you mean?
At 514, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you look at this is an aerial photo of the backyard of the 514 that is subject for now in this application. If you look at it, there's quite a bit of space. There's already 2 cars parked, not the proper way, but if you want to use it as a parking, there is enough space to use that 2 spaces as a parking. And the carriage house was used as a parking spot at one time, as a parking for a vehicle. And
again, we haven't seen any documentation about conversations with the Preservation Committee or the fact that it was historically a 2-story carriage house, et cetera, any of that. We'd be interested in seeing that, but we haven't seen any of that documentation. In terms of using this upper story for a studio, I think you can see from the interior plans, it is an enormous existing space with plenty of amenity space within the house. It's hard to see why they need an additional, to double the height of the existing carriage house in a way that staff, again, have said, is double the allowed height for an accessory building and inconsistent with the neighborhood. And which creates additional, with a window in the side that creates overlook concerns.
All right, so you've exceeded your time. Can you wrap up?
Yeah, so again, the owners of 512 Jarvis support the refusal recommendation of staff. At the very least, we request a deferral to allow them to obtain planning advice, to review the heritage documentation that the owner's architect, Mr. Hall, says is available, the evidence of the historic 2 stories of the carriage house, et cetera. Would appreciate that opportunity. I've only just been...
I'm not inclined to consider a deferral motion after we've heard the matter on the merits. So I don't know what my colleague thinks. Thank you. Mr. Hall, please.
This is an aerial photograph of the property, of the property. Let me get my bearings. On Jarvis is the main street that you see going along almost to the left of the photograph. Gloucester Street is the horizontal street at the bottom. 512 is the historic house at the corner. 514, and the trees that you see surrounding both 514 and the houses beyond it are all within the street right-of-way. If you look closely at the rear, you'll see the carriage house with a car parked not beyond the face of the carriage house, and the paved space between the historic house and the carriage house. Also note that the trees that you see to the right of the carriage house and further back are really on adjacent properties, not on 5112 or 514. And you asked a question about what is on the other side of 512. You can see the 4-story addition to the former mansion that was there that overlooks the rear yard of 512. And so there's lots of, and to the south, at the very bottom, right-hand corner of the screen, you see a little bit of the 10-story high-rise building that's there. These properties are surrounded by far denser development. If you come further south on Jarvis Street, one block further to the south and across Jarvis, this is the front yard. Here we have, this is the front yard. The landscaping of 512 that the Matthews have, 514, very formal. The 512, they paved the entire front yard. There's no landscaping in the front yard.
You have a photo, Mr. Hall, of the back of 512?
The back of 512, say that again, please?
512, the back of 512.
What is in the back of 512?
Yeah, do you have a photo of that?
Only the aerial.
I might have a photo.
Okay.
I do have photos, yeah.
I have a current photo. May I speak?
This is Abe Matthews. Abe Matthews.
Okay.
Okay. While we're waiting for that additional photograph, I was mentioning that to the north and across the street of from 514 is an historic mansion, Casey House, that was recently converted to cancer treatment, and I'm going to put. This is Casey House, which had a rear yard renovation to it. As you can see, it has no setbacks. The height far exceeds the historic house in all elements. So that's another neighbor.
That's on Jarvis, just north of 514?
That's right. That's right. Jarvis is to the right of the historic house there. So there's lots of, this is a really mixed neighborhood in terms of development. It's not a single-family neighborhood or single-family structures.
What do you say about the fact that the city objects because this is continuous and it's 34-something meters or something?
The property was built in 1860, as I say, before there was any zoning any place in Toronto, and in my view, doesn't really apply to here. That issue of building depth. The building depth has always included the carriage house, the house, and the carriage house at the rear.
But what the city's saying is you're now connecting them, so they're now 34
That's right.
meters.
And what we're doing that Heritage supports is that, let's put the elevation up again. Front elevation. Heritage was not at all concerned about the connection. The historic house and the carriage house are red brick, and so what we would be providing with the face of the garage is we'd pick up some of the horizontal lines of the buildings on either side of it, and it would be a different material. In this instance, probably a dark gray stucco material. And the doors dark gray, so that there would be a contrast from Gloucester Street. You would see clearly the historic house to the east, the historic house to the east, and the carriage house at the back of the lot, as separate from the addition that's there. I should also mention that we've looked at this issue of the we felt that having a roof deck on top of the garage would provide an opportunity for some additional green space beyond the front yard that's been there historically. But that could be removed if that was a major issue. We felt that the landscaping of that overrode the fact that it was a usable deck for the family. Right now, that the proposed garage, the south wall of that is aligned with the rear wall of the carriage house. The zoning bylaw requires, today's zoning bylaw requires 0.9 meters setback from the property line, and we could make it work with that 0.9 meters if that was an important issue. But we felt it was that less than a meter space between the neighboring fence and the back of the garage was essentially unusable and could use the space in the garage.
So I take it that the garage is actually higher than the heritage house, carriage house is now.
Yes.
This would be the height of the carriage house now?
Yes. Yes, it is.
So it wouldn't look very good if you didn't put a second story on.
That's right.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hall, do you have any questions, Mr. Neff? All right, thank you. Are you prepared to make the motion?
I am. First of all, this is a remarkable building and a remarkable site, and it needs to be dealt with very carefully. I'm impressed and pleased to see that the applicant has brought a consultant on that has 3 areas of expertise that are reflected in the things that need to be looked at in this site. I personally do not have difficulty with the proposed north elevation, and I don't feel that the project offends the official plan and bylaw to the extent that the planning department has indicated. I'm persuaded that the Heritage Department was satisfied, subject to the submission of final drawings. The one area that I think is perhaps a little unfortunate is the impact on the amenity space behind your neighbor. And I don't see an alternative that would make that situation better, other than some attention to the material of the wall and perhaps some cascading landscaping. That's not our role here, but I would encourage the applicant to look, should this be approved, at making that elevation something that's more amenable to the amenity space of the adjacent owner. Having said that, I'm prepared to move approval of the application. I would like to add a condition. I notice in the planning department report that there is, under the area that's dealt with rear yard soft landscaping, the planning department says that the application proposes to include planters on the roof terrace above the proposed garage addition. However, no details have been supplied to demonstrate the effectiveness of the proposed planters at retaining stormwater or improving infiltration. As such, the inclusion of this feature does not constitute an improvement over the existing landscape condition. My condition is that the applicant provide a proposed roof terrace that is satisfactory to the Director of Planning with regard to the retention of stormwater and improving infiltration. It allows some consultation with the Planning Department and their ultimate approval for that. Subject to that condition and the forestry condition number 1,
Heritage conditions.
Heritage was basically to submit drawings, which do we need to put that in as a condition? Okay, then the heritage condition as well, which you need to submit the drawings for building permit to them to ensure that you've met the heritage condition requirements. Subject to that, Mr. Chairman, I'm inclined to move approval of the application. It's a difficult site because what's there is so spectacular. I'm placing my faith in the applicant and the owners to undertake this with great care, and I would encourage that care and attention be given to the view of the project from the adjacent property. But based on that and subject to the conditions that I place, I'd move approval of the application.
You're not, we're in committee, we're not taking any further submissions. Thank you. I'm prepared to second the motion. So all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Number 18, 20 Salisbury Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear two-story addition. On this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, correspondence from Heritage Preservation Services, reports from Heritage and Urban Forestry. We have correspondence in support, six letters in support, and we have one letter in opposition.
Morning. My name is Jonathan Hatch. I'm here representing the owner of 20 Salisbury.
Yeah.
Excuse me, any neighbors on this? Yes, there are two neighbors, and we've spoken to them. I have one extra letter of support.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pardon? 18. Could the neighbors come forward?
We have been speaking with the neighbors, and we have agreed to make some revisions to the variances.
Right. So if you could just hold on a minute. So we have an email in support from 49 Amelia Street. Okay. Please
I'm sorry.
tell us what your agreements are.
So we have agreed to, first, we are going to remove the two parking variances, number 3 and then number 1 under the old bylaw. And then there will be a revision to variance number 1, which is the depth variance from a request of 18.74, changing to 18.44, so a reduction of 0.3. Both neighbors were discussing it with us and are both in agreement that this is a better scenario than the current application.
You have to bear with me. The drawings in my agenda are totally illegible.
Yes, the designer that drew them hand draws them with pencil,
Yeah.
and it
Can
was.
you tell me what the impact of that, the changes to the variance number 3 and 1? I got that.
Yep.
But what is the actual physical impact?
So the actual variance would be on the second floor, which currently cantilevers over a small ground floor addition. So the whole addition request is 1.74 meters, but we would be reducing the second floor overhang by 0.3.
And that, well, why? What?
It was concerns over light and shadowing onto the neighboring yards.
Does that impact the floor space index?
It does impact the floor space index, but in this case, they were okay with, it changes it very minorly, as you can imagine. So we've decided to just keep the floor space index as noted. Okay. Would you like a full presentation?
No. Can we hear from that the neighbors agree? Can one of you speak on behalf of the other? Could you come forward to the podium, please? Give us your name first.
I'm Sam Richardson. I'm 22 Salisbury Avenue, just to the east of number 20. So essentially what they're doing is putting on a large box on top of the
Yeah, but we just want to know if you're agreeable to the changes that Mr. Hatch suggested.
I think it's the lesser of two evils.
Okay, so that you're compatible with the deletion of the parking and reduction of the depth to 18.44 meters.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much.
You live in the attached semi, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, I don't have drawings, so I don't know. When this is all completed, will your semis match?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Do you want a picture?
I absolutely need to know.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Row houses or semis? So how come I have a letter from
It says semis.
Patrick Lee at 18 saying our two properties are attached?
I'm a semi, but he's a row on the other side, so I'm the end of the row.
I see, okay.
So this is my house. Yeah, and I'm not an architect, so I apologize for my. But the extension should come to around this line here, and come down. So this would be here, and then across.
So what am I looking at? Is this your front?
This is the back of our house.
Okay.
So this roof here is the.
It's a rear addition.
So there's no impact on the front elevation of your house, it's just on the rear?
Exactly.
Okay, you're not going to see anything, there's no changes to the roof, it's just at the rear? Sorry for these questions, because without the drawings, it's hard to figure out, yeah.
It's all at the rear.
Okay. Are you okay with these changes? Lesser of two evils, yes?
It's a lesser of two evils.
Okay.
So my backyard is directly below this, and then you can see the skylights. I've tried to sort of indicate some sort of shadow lines, but of sun. So obviously it's looking at the west. I mean, I would prefer it wasn't there, but I appreciate what Howard's doing it, and he needs the space. But I don't know how to do this in a mutually beneficial manner. Put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
For the context, the addition is shown here, and you can actually see the outline of the neighboring house at 18 Salisbury, and you can see that's the bay window. So really, this addition at the second floor level would be reduced from a 2-foot overhang to a 1-foot overhang. The reason for this addition was that, as you know, in Cabbagetown, the standard is to go up to a 3rd story to gain the extra bedroom. However, that would require height variances. It would require a much larger GFA variance. In this case, what we've proposed is a simple addition towards the rear at the 2nd floor with a very simple shed roof to minimize impacts. We did originally start with a design that would go up to a 3rd floor, but we found this was as you said, the lesser impact that we could figure out for this lot. When you look at the floor plans, what we're requesting is that back room right there. It's not a large addition. It's 10 foot 5.5 to create a very small master bedroom that has a limited closet space, and we have an extra bathroom. This is only a 3-bedroom house. It's not a large addition that we're trying to impose. And our GFA numbers in the area range much higher, anywhere from 1.09 all the way up to almost 2.0 in a lot of cases. Again, also in the area, we're only asking for 1.44 meters over the allowable.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any further questions?
No.
Questions? All right. Ready for a motion?
Are you ready?
Sure.
I'd like to move approval of the application as revised, which has variance number 3 to bylaw 569-2013 removed, and variance number 1 to bylaw 438-86 removed, and with variance number 1 to bylaw 569-2013 changed so that the altered semi-detached dwelling will have a building depth of 18.44 meters. It sounds as though this is a reasonable alternative to a rather modest adjustment to an existing house. The alternative of building up to the 3rd story, I think, would not only involve more variances, but it would also create some problems with integration into the community. My motion is subject to heritage condition about the submission of drawings at building permit stage and forestry condition number 2.
I'll second Mr. Niffeld's motion.
All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 19, 34R King Edward Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter an existing two-story detached dwelling by reconstructing the third-floor addition and by constructing a second-floor deck. Before us on this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a staff report from planning, correspondence in concern from 23 King Edward Drive, in opposition from 7 letters plus a 12 form letters in opposition as well. Okay, your name, please.
Hi, my name is Susanna Krokorka. I am the agent of the applicant Daniel, who's right there.
Could I ask, the information you've just given us, is there a copy for the people?
I can definitely give them one.
So they know what we're talking about?
Okay, it's on the board anyway.
So all this information will be on the overhead.
Okay.
Right, that's fine.
So we're here today to seek some relief from the variances that you have before you. I am aware of the letters of objection, and we have talked to the neighbors in person and by email. We have not been able to reach a session, and in part, I believe that the proposal is not fully understood and would like an opportunity to talk through the proposal. So as you can see from the pictures, this is a bit of an anomaly of a building. It was built in the 40s by two owners. The houses that you see on the left-hand picture, those two homes built a warehouse in their backyards. They were brothers, and they built it without a permit in the 40s. It was then one of the owners wanted to sell his house, so they severed the lot and were able to create it as a residential property. Unfortunately, after that, the third story was added without a permit. So basically what you see, the roof, that's a third story, and it has been there since the 90s. So it predates my client Daniel, who just bought the house last summer. We did not know that this floor was built without a permit. When I went to get information on the building, there was nothing. There was confusion about whether it had gone through permits, and it hadn't.
So could you just clarify for me what in the purpose it says by reconstructing the third floor addition? So is it there? Or
That's it. That's a third story there.
Yeah.
So as you'll see through my presentation, it's very, very small. The height is not enough for a 6-foot person to stand in properly. So all of our variances are triggered by the need to bring it up by 15 inches. And also the way that the roof is designed right now as the hip roof, it's very hard to get any kind of usable space on the outside. And you'll see also in the presentation that most of that space is not usable. It's not finished at all. So if you flip the page.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we originally sent the notice of public hearing out, it said a two-story dwelling, and then, or sorry, it said a three-story dwelling, then we were told it was a two-story dwelling. So we amended it for the agenda, but I'm now understanding it actually is a three-story dwelling?
That is a usable space. It's a master bedroom up there with a bathroom, and I'll be showing you pictures there. But my client, he's bought this house. He had an intention to use that space, and it turns out that, like, even for myself to use the toilet up there, I have to kind of crawl into the bathroom. So it's very poorly built and planned.
So photographs that you showed us are just for this.
That's right. So there's an existing deck. The wall around the deck is 6 feet, so there's no privacy overlook into the backyards from there. And the roof that you see on this plan is the new roof. So this is our proposed site plan. So we are building the exact same footprint as what's there. We just want to raise the roof up. And unfortunately, that triggers a bunch of variances.
So it's 15 inches.
15 inches taller than the peak of the roof now. There are some sidewall height variances also, and just to get a space that's livable, we need to have a roof that is a height at the perimeter that will allow us to stand in that space.
Can you clarify with the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, if you can massage the wording of the purpose of an application, but if you send out a notice that it's a 2-story building, and in fact it's a 3-story building.
Sent it out saying it was a 3-story building, and then we were told it was only 2 stories.
So you change. So what did the public get? 3?
3 stories.
So they're not being misled in terms of it's suddenly bigger. It's okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, to speak to that, it's not legal, it's non-conforming legal, but they never had a permit to build that. So if we look at the next this page here, I'm just explaining that the variances for setbacks, really the house is on all the property lines. Like there's very little setback, and any downspout or eaves that we would be adding to the building would go past what's there already. So those variances are for architectural features such as downspouts and eaves troughs. So for the next page, if you can.
If you've got downspouts going, where are they going to?
Well, we haven't exactly figured out the water management yet, because I haven't drawn construction drawings. Sorry.
I don't know if you're going to hear about this.
They will all be on our property, yeah.
Assuming that it doesn't go on to adjacent property.
No. We'll be draining to the east of our property where that garden is. You can see from the picture there that that garden is in front of our property, and it's our, yeah.
So in the second drawing, the houses you show at 32 and 34 King Avenue, they're the ones that built this?
Yes, that's right. They were 2 brothers. They were at 32 and 34, and they built that. So this building predates most of the neighbors who have now moved into the neighborhood who have an issue with this building, and I believe they have an issue with the existing building also. So that's...
It became a separate lot.
This became a separate lot. And you can see in the site plan...
Passageway from the front.
Yes, yeah. It's a very odd lot, and there was some confusion as to which were the side lots and which were the rear lots because the property lines are so odd. So the next slide is just showing some pictures. So you can see the photo with the door open. That's how to get into the 3rd floor. And I can pass through that door, but many people can't. I think it's about 5'6" tall. And that's the main door. Then there's a bathroom below that with a toilet that I could probably sit at, but I don't think anyone standing up would be able to use it that well. And then there's another shot of the 3rd floor attic, and you can see how small that space is because you can't occupy the full extent of the 3rd floor.
Can you tell me where, you see the photograph in the upper left-hand corner?
Yep.
And the vegetated wall. Where is the vegetated wall on the site plan?
So the vegetation goes on the east wall. So in the site plan, it is, can you flip back to this page, Dana? So that's what's visible. So that would be on the east side of the building. This is orientated north. So that whole wall is the east, and the vegetation goes around, kind of around both sides of the building.
This wall here. That's
right, and that's the view that you would get if you're walking by the building. Yeah. So, and now back to this slide. So on the diagram on the right, you can see the gray is the existing warehouse, and the pink is the new roof that we want to build. The yellow is a dormer that goes out to the east. We need a dormer to be able to access the 3rd floor because of the stair that we need, that is already there, but we would like to make it a legal staircase. And, I mean, there might be some possibilities to change the roof line. I could make it more of a gable and therefore reducing a little bit of the sidewall. But it's a tricky thing to do because you want to provide enough head height. Another idea would be to pull in the sidewalls, but that also is difficult because then we are introducing a new structure to the building, which will be a bit more expensive if we want to create new exterior walls. We plan to build on top of the walls that are there.
Can we just go back to the first photograph? I just want to know where the entrance.
The entrance, sure. Yeah, so see that red garage door?
Yes.
So right beside it is a man door. So the garage door opens. I'm assuming they had that when the trucks were able to pull in to deliver and it was a banana warehouse, so they would have had trucks come in and out of there.
So the next drawing.
Yep.
Shows, so is.
So you would go down that driveway. Yep. Yep.
This part belongs to this?
Yes, everything within the red line. So that's our garden space there.
So how do these properties access their, is that a garage, do they have parking, or is this?
This is not their, that's, yes, that's our property. It's not a right-of-way, it's for us.
Okay.
And so then on the next sheet, this. I did some research and was able to gather the approvals for heights for the neighborhood. And I believe we talked about Cedarvale earlier today. That was the 9.98. We are asking for 9.1. The building is 8.8 meters tall, and we just want enough head height to move around in that space. I'm not really sure we could bring it down past 9.1 unless we went to like a very flat joist system. I've done a section of I have a structural engineer. There's not a lot of room to move on that. So I just indicate which there is precedent for taller than 8.5 in the neighborhood. And so I've listed those. And then the next, so I've done some sun shadow studies because I do know that the neighbors are opposing to the project based on sunlight also. Because of the orientation of this building, I do believe that most of the extra shadow will be in the afternoon, will be on our own property on the roof deck. But I did run these for June and for March, 9:30 noon, 3:05. You can see the little pink sliver is the extra shadow that will be created by the taller roof line. And in my opinion, it does not seem to be that significant. It's already casting a pretty big shadow in the morning. Now, it's a little bit hard because it doesn't show the other shadows of the other homes. I don't know when this picture was taken. So, there's also a lot of shadow that isn't shown from other homes casting shadow. But yes, there's a significant shadow that's existing, which is the gray one. And I don't believe the pink line is really that we're adding that much shadow. The next page is just showing March.
So all in all, this extra 15 inches isn't going to have a great impact.
It's not on the shadows, no. Not.
Could you, I mean,
I'll try, I only have a few more pages.
Complicated, so
yeah.
I appreciate that, but please wrap up now.
Yes, okay. The next page is just about the density, and basically, so can you flip it? Basically, I'm just trying to say that we're just trying to take use of the space that's there. It's now unfinished. You have to crawl behind the wood paneled wall to get to it. So that's what brings up our FSI. Like I said before, we'd be willing to bring in the walls, but I really don't see that as the major issue. We just want to be able to use the space. I've done some more research about approvals, and there is precedent in the neighborhood. I realize that .99 is asking for a significant increase, 132% over allowable, but the building's there, and we just want to be able to take advantage of what's there. And then the last variances are the
Tell us what the floor space index is now.
Yes, the floor space index is 0.88 now, which is above 0.75.
Thank you.
And basically, we're going up to 0.99 just because we're using that extra space that's white in the drawing.
I have a question. It's frustrating when we're here and there's a proposal that's complicated and residents are concerned, and we find out that there has been no consultation with the residents. Can you clarify, I hope that's not the case here, can you clarify what level of consultation there's been ongoing with the residents?
Sure. I mean, they may see it a little bit differently. My client did offer for me to meet with them to explain the proposal about a month ago, and I would have been very willing to do that. I live in Toronto. My client does not. However, there was no move to meet with me. Some of
When did they receive the notice?
I don't know the actual date. I think it was beginning of April, like maybe April 10th.
The first notice I got from the neighbors was on April 6th, so they would have received it before that.
Okay. So before
I'm just
that.
normally in a project, this is a complicated project. It's unique and it's interesting, but it's complicated. And normally in a project like this, it's advisable to consult and work with the neighbors much earlier. Because in your presentation, you're offering up some alternatives that probably should have been offered up in consultation. Just for future reference, there's nothing we can do about it now, we'll hear, but I'm hopeful that we don't hear that these people are confused because there was no consultation.
I don't know. They do want us to withdraw the application. I get a sense that they don't want anything built there at all. Construction has been, they've brought up stuff about construction and water, which are things that we can't do anything about. So I do believe they're just opposed to development.
Okay, I'm only concerned if they've had adequate consultation. So fine, thank you.
Okay. And then just the last variances are about platforms. So the existing second-story deck is there. We are not changing it. That's part of the reason why do you want to flip just to the stage? Why Daniel bought the house. He loves that deck. It's beautiful. It's private. There's no change to it. The other platform is really just a landing. Yep. I'm done.
We understand. You're done.
Okay, great.
Okay. Neighbors, you have to have a spokesperson. So you're going to speak on behalf of everybody?
Yeah, we'd like two of us to speak if possible.
Pardon?
We would like two of us to speak if possible.
Okay.
There are 20 letters of objections and no letters of approval. And on the two most immediate neighbors, number 30 and myself, we would like to speak.
And you're going to deal with different matters, not going to say the same thing.
3.5 minutes each. We're running out of time.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Derek Christensen. I live at 32 King Edward Avenue, the property immediately to the east of 34R. I've lived here for 10 years with my family and 2 young children, and today I'd like to talk about my concerns about the building size, sun and sky, privacy, and the fit with the neighborhood.
So what's there right now? Has it been a private dwelling?
Yes. Yes, the previous owners happily raised 4 daughters in this massive building for many decades.
All right, thank you.
Can I clarify, are you one of the 2 houses on the side of that driveway that comes in?
Yeah, number 32 right there immediately. I'm probably the most affected by this.
Yep, thanks. Okay.
Okay, so, I mean, they actually just covered this, but what you need to understand about this building is the size of it. It is massive. It is at an odd spot in the midst of everyone's backyards. It's highly unusual. Okay, it's already listed at 3,500 square feet in the plans. So the wording here, it's too small, small space. It's completely out of line. The proposal is to increase it to 4,000 square feet.
We understand what's there, but we need to know what impact the changes are going to have on you.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, and that's what I want to talk about. In terms of impact, the shading and the shadowing and the access to skylight is a big consideration. Okay, I'm lucky to get 2 hours of sunlight in my backyard. I have no objection to the existing building. I bought my property knowing it was there, but also with the reasonable assumption that a massive building, 3,500 square feet, would not be approved, okay? That was a reasonable expectation. So I can barely grow any grass in my yard.
Sorry.
It's always in the dark.
To clarify, you're okay with this as it is, and that's the building now, right?
Yes.
The deck here, and then that's the dwelling.
The change in height that I'm most concerned about is the change in wall height. We're talking about adding 1.85 meters in wall height, okay, to a building that's 14 feet from my property line, and I have a very tiny backyard, as you can see from the tree that takes up most of it. Okay, so so the wall height is a dangerous precedent. I know they're talking about the building height, okay, and none of their examples were King Edward Avenue. They're all in the surrounding neighborhood. So it is way out of line for our street, for sure. Okay. So again, the unique placement of my house immediately next to it, it affects my sun and skylight. I'm lucky to get a couple hours of sun, and you know there's been no consultation with us, no consideration of the impact to the sun and no shadow impact study or any information provided to us. All I know is that I have a very limited view of the sunlight into my backyard. Privacy is another consideration. I have two very young children, 3 and 5 years old. Their bedrooms currently face the backyard. You can see from the pictures, there's one picture from the bedroom, it faces the house. Okay, so the proposal is to add 6 feet of wall height and windows that will view immediately into my backyard and my children's bedroom. Okay, and I understand there's a recent concession to change the window glass to glass block. Okay, which I find is a token gesture because everybody here understands that anyone who would own and invest in this property would immediately want to change that window at any time in the future.
Time is just about up.
Okay, well, I need to address the neighborhood support. There's 20 letters of objection and no letters of support. We are a community that's supportive of renovations. Our neighbor currently at number 30 is undergoing a renovation which received overwhelming support from the community, 12 letters of support from the neighbors, no letters of objection, okay? They're currently undergoing variance changes, a new addition, new windows, and we completely support it, and so have all the neighbors, okay?
It's obviously an anomaly. It's in the rear. It shouldn't even be there.
Yeah.
Truncated lots because of it, so it's sort of a unique situation.
Exactly.
You know, as opposed to...
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Next.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Maya Becker. I'm at number 30 King Edward. So if you could put up the photo showing where we're located. So we're immediately to the south and southeast of the property in question. So our house is actually the closest in proximity to the building of the dwelling. Our main concerns are with regard to the exterior wall height. We also have absolutely no problem with the existing footprint, the existing height at the apex of the roof. They want to do anything within the existing walls as it is now. No issue there. We don't oppose development. What we do have an issue with is that exterior wall height on our side. If you could put up the photo, please. It will be going up. This is a photo from my backyard. It will be going up 6 feet on that wall. So that's 7 meters up to 8.89 meters on the south side. That is a side of our yard. As you can see, the setbacks are not sufficient.
What wall is that?
That is the south side wall.
Side.
So we are on the south. So it's a side wall. What I would note is that because we're located on the southeast, if you look at that top photo, the south wall is that gray one. The red wall is a front wall. So we actually get both of those from the view on our back deck. We see both.
So
and the
variance 5, I guess, the permitted 7.7 meters, they're going to 8.89.
Correct. So that's immediately on our wall, and you'll notice the setback from our backyard. It's currently 40 centimeters, and again, it's very close to the back of our house. This will block our sun views. Here's a shot that we will no longer get once this wall goes up. We will also block our sky views. It's imposing and looming over our backyard. We have no issue with how this is now. We don't want it to go any higher. That's our main concern here. So I don't want to take up your time. I know that it's already delayed, but I would say the three points we have is saying that this isn't a minor variance request. This is a bizarre, legal non-conforming use residence. There's a higher bar that must be met to enlarge a legal non-conforming residence in a neighborhood where this is not the norm. So not only is this request not minor, the wall height on our side goes up 27%. It also does not align with the bylaws. A 32% increase in FSI beyond the bylaws is not minor. And it also doesn't align with the official plan that says you have to be in character with other dwellings and physical impacts and massing. This will have a huge impact. You don't get 20 letters of opposition if people don't feel that there are issues. It was our home that is currently undergoing a renovation at number 30. We came here exactly a year ago. We engaged our neighbors before we did our designs, and we made concessions. For example, we did not build a rear addition on our home.
Please
we built
talk
it forward.
about the impact of the
Okay,
building.
that's fine.
Property.
So those are our main concerns with regards to it being a major impact and a major variance. It's way above the bylaws. It doesn't align with the official plan, and we are
This
opposed.
building is a legal non-conforming use.
Correct.
Doesn't conform at all.
It's a legal non-conforming, correct.
It's interesting that the staff report doesn't make any mention, you read the staff report, figure it's just a regular house at the front of the lot.
Yeah.
This is an anomaly, it was built illegally in 1940, it is what it is. And I hear your position of the neighbors saying, it is what it is, we bought, we knew it was there, but to make it even 6 feet higher is adding insult to injury. It's really
If I could make a,
pushing
just,
the envelope of something that no one thought. If it's this
Yeah.
3,500 square foot house in the rear, which is a very unusual situation, that to make it even higher if it was in the normal course of normal houses. So I hear what you're saying here.
could I address the staff report in
That
a
was
second?
Actually, you mentioned something I want the neighbor to
Yeah.
bring up, the applicant to bring up in rebuttal. You said, with an existing envelope, let them do whatever they want. So I want to hear from the applicant, as she explained the problems with the bedroom and the bathroom and having to squeeze through a door. Is there not just internal renovations they can do to make this house without
Yeah.
adding further impact on the neighbors
Yeah.
in the rear yard?
I'll let her address that rebuttal. I do want to mention on the staff report, there are consistent and numerous inconsistencies. For example, they state that this property is on the west of King Edward. It's actually on the east side of the street of King Edward. So throughout that document, and quite frankly,
Located on the east side. Anyway.
it's on the west side, though, of King Edward. So sorry, I just said it wrong. But they've got the wrong side of the street even, and they have other
Time.
incorrect information.
All right.
So just to say thank you.
Your time is up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I am the owner of the property.
Yeah, so let us have the agent rebut.
Am I able to rebut something?
No. Could you come up, please?
Well, I'm not really sure what else there is to say. I mean,
So let's
we
talk
do.
about the wall
Okay.
at the back adjacent to 30. I have a drawing, photograph number 2 in your application says that the currently 7 meters at eaves, and it's going to 8.89, is that correct?
So, yeah, it is there. You can see the sidewall currently. I can pull up why don't I pull up an elevation then? That might be more helpful. I have.
That's the south wall.
This is the south wall. To get the height that we need inside the third story, we've designed it in a way we've set back the east wall a little bit. Yes, this is the south wall. And the roof does slope down so we can have a bathroom in the corner there that you can stand up in.
But the wall is going to be 1.89 meters higher than it presently is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
And to clarify, one of the questions was, and we heard all of these people say the same thing, It's there, it's unusual, it's not the sort of thing that you would expect, but we bought our houses and we're prepared to live with it as it is. What we don't want is it to go any higher. Aren't there alternatives? There is an alternative. Half of your property is the 2 or 2.5 story building. The other half is a deck. You could in fact accommodate this bedroom that you want on the deck, could you not?
Well, we'd be actually going even higher that way because
No,
the
you
deck
wouldn't
is
be
one
high-
step up.
You wouldn't be going higher on the south elevation, which is the one that's objectionable.
Oh, to shift the whole addition?
Well, no, there's an open space right here, and all of the building is concentrated on the south end of the lot.
Yes, so it's a little bit difficult to explain, but underneath that deck is one big open warehouse space. So to add any usable space above that would be building a huge stair through that open space, perforating through the deck. There's some massive steel beams that run through there. Like, it would be such an expense that my owner wouldn't be able to do that. There's already a stair that goes up to the 3rd story. This is the least intrusive in terms of within the interior of the house, yeah. Like I said, there might be a way to bring one of the sidewalls down, but we still need, you're always going to see that, that middle ridge height because you need to be able to provide at least 7 feet inside.
So how much could you bring the wall down?
Well, we could match the two so that what you see on the east side with the dormer, we could make the whole thing symmetrical and have a dormer on the other side too.
Still 6 feet.
So how many meters would you need?
It would bring the side wall of the west wall down a bit, but we would still have a taller sidewall than existing on the east side. We could bring the entire 3rd floor footprint in, but we'll still have to have the height, so there'll still be an issue with anything really that we do to make it livable.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
No. Ready for a motion?
Thank you. Ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, there's no other questions. I'm prepared to make a motion of refusal of the application. First of all, I know, looking at the site plan, it's a large house, as we heard from the neighbors. There's 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, a large family room, then there's a large sitting room on the main floor, an office, a large office, and like I said earlier, I think that it's an anomaly, it's there, the neighbors accept it, but to make it any larger, any higher, and I think the impacts on the neighbors in this instance are not appropriate, and I think the equities lie on behalf of with the neighbors here. I understand your challenges, but you seem to have a lot, as the lady from number 30 said, there's a lot within the footprint that you can do here. I don't know, you said there's a large expansive open space, a warehouse. I don't know what it's being used for. Is it vacant? But to add a further 2 meters of height, so close to the people living in the front part of the lots, I think results in this not being minor, not meeting the 4 tests, and I would move a refusal of the application.
I agree with my colleague. I think adding height to this particular unique situation is, in fact, a huge hardship for the adjacent owners. As somebody stated at the very beginning, this is an anomaly in that it's a building in the middle of everyone's backyard. And as we heard from 2 people, placing the building in their backyard has created some problems, and making the building bigger would create further problems. I'm supporting the motion of deferral, or the motion of refusal.
I'm not supporting the motion. I think 15 inches increase in height is not an imposition on the neighbors, and it makes the building usable where it isn't now. So I will be opposing the motion. All in favor of the motion? Dissenting?
Okay, motion carries.
Motion carries. The application refused.
Morning is Neighbors, make sure you fill out those white decision request cards. In the event of an appeal, you'll want to be notified.
15 minutes,
Right.
right? Yeah, but we still have to.
Morning session adjourned at 1:11.
1:11, yeah.
So we have to still go over the agenda.
you.
We haven't done a briefing for this second.
Right.
I'm not going to